Good evening. Everybody must have looked at their watch. I got quiet all of a sudden. It's 5:30. Today is June 20th, 2019. Welcome to the Marion City Council meeting here in Marion, Iowa. We welcome you to City Hall. Just a couple of housekeeping items. If you would, please silence your telephones, and we'll get things started here. We do have a packed house this evening. There will be a public hearing, and then also, too, there will be times for people to comment. Rather than reiterate this throughout the evening, there are yellow or goldenrod slips that we would like you to fill your name and address in, please. Those will be for our auditor or for our clerk of court. We do record everything, and we document all of our speakers, so we would appreciate that. That way we don't have to repeat that coming forward. While we have our presentations tonight, we want to give everybody the opportunity to speak. If I happen to interrupt you, to ask you to draw your speech to a close, please don't be offended. We're just trying to get everybody through this evening for those comments. So without further ado, if you would, we'll call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we'll do a roll call.
Mr. Draper?
Here.
Ms. Atkins? Here. Mr. Jensen?
Here.
Mayor Abu-Osley? Mr. Sternad?
Here.
Mr. Brandt?
Here.
Ms. Gedalia? Here.
At this time, we reserve just a brief moment for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. At this time, the city has a proclamation. I would like to ask for Brent Niles to come forward, please. Is Brent here? Very good. Please come forward. Oh, I feel like I'm in an auditorium. That is loud. So this is our proclamation this evening. So whereas the city of Marion believes in and stands for values of inclusion, equity, fairness, and justice. Whereas the city of Marion welcomes all people and recognizes the rights of individuals to live their lives with dignity, free of discrimination because of their faith, race, national origin, sexual orientation, or immigration status. Whereas the city of Marion will continue to work in making our services and programs accessible and open to all individuals. Whereas the city of Marion believes in the public sector for the public good, in advancing equity and inclusion is critical to the success of our communities and our nation. Whereas the fight for dignity and equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, LGBTQ people is reflected in the tireless dedication and advocates and allies who strive to forge a more inclusive society. Whereas our community has made great strides in recognizing all individuals, let us celebrate how far we have come and reaffirm our steadfast belief in the equal dignity of all Americans. Now, therefore, I, Randy Sternad, Mayor Pro Tem of City of Marion, Iowa, do hereby proclaim June 2019 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Pride Month. I call upon the people of Marion to eliminate prejudice everywhere it exists and to celebrate the great diversity of community. Congratulations.
Thank you, Brad.
Okay, at this time, we set aside some time for presentations that are on the formal agenda, and I see that there is none. So moving on, that brings us to the public forum. Please note that this section is for comments from the public on topics listed on the agenda not associated with the public hearing. So please note anything that needs to be spoken about would be in reference to the agenda this evening, but will not be part of the public hearing. So at this time, you're welcome to come forward.
My name is Robert Buckley. I live at 2730 Heatherview Circle, Marion, Iowa. And I think it would be appropriate this time. I think I understood what you're saying. I would like to talk to you very briefly tonight to tell you how disappointed I am that the Marion Public Library is taking such an active role in promoting Pride in Action.
Sir, I'm sorry, this is not an agenda item, but you're welcome to bring that to us at the end of the meeting?
At the end of the meeting?
Yes, sir. Yep.
All right.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Anyone else would like to speak before the council on any item on the agenda that is not part of the public hearing? Seeing none, we'll move on. At this time, we'll move into the consent agenda. Ms. Atkins.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A1 through F3, resolutions 27711 through 27741. I think. Let me look. 27741.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve items number A1 through F3, resolutions 27711 through 27741. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve resolution number 27742, approving the proposed allocation of the hotel motel funding for fiscal year 2019 to 2020.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 27742, approving the proposed allocation of hotel motel funding for fiscal year ending in 19 and 20. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of resolution 27742 say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Resolution carries. Thank you. Mr. Brent.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve resolution number 27743, approving agreement with Dorsey & Whitney regarding legal services for general obligation urban renewal bonds, series 2019D, in the amount not to exceed $25,000.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 27743, approving agreement with Dorsey & Whitney regarding legal services for general obligation urban renewal bonds, series 2019D, in an amount not to exceed $25,000. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of resolution 27743 say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Resolution carries. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve resolution number 27744, setting the date for public hearing on proposal to enter into a general obligation urban renewal loan agreement and to borrow money thereunder in a principal amount not to exceed $6.5 million.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 27744, setting the date for public hearing on proposal to enter into a general obligation urban renewal loan agreement and to borrow money thereunder in a principal amount not to exceed $6,500,000. Discussion. Yes, ma'am.
Just want to clarify, this is in association with the YMCA?
Correct.
Okay. Yep, thanks.
Seeing that there's no other questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve resolution number 27745, approving amendment to loan guarantee with Prospect Meadows.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 27745, approving the amendment to loan guarantee with Prospect Meadows. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve resolution number 27746, approving fiscal year 2018-2019 budget transfers.
Second.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 27746, approving the fiscal year 2018-2019 budget transfers. Discussion.
Are we going to have a presentation on that tonight?
What's that?
Yeah, that's
This, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
On Tuesday, the council had asked for a staff presentation, so we, if you're ready.
Yep.
All right, sir, please. Thank you.
I wasn't really sure exactly what you're looking for in presentation, so I thought for the most part you'd want me to highlight what was changed from the actual budget that was approved. So for starters, transfers are transfers from one fund to another fund, and traditionally it's usually because we are expending money out of one fund, but the revenue source is coming from a different fund. So when you look at the summary I've provided, highlighted in gold is a transfer from the special census fund to the general fund, and that's simply to zero out a fund that we had intended to zero out in a prior year. In the blue are items that were included in the budget at a different amount than what I have presented to be transferred. And these are largely due to just estimations. For instance, the emergency fund we transferred, or the amount we budgeted was the amount that did not include the commercial backfill. But then when we include the commercial backfill dollars, that's what bumps us up a little bit. The next one, Collins Road Urban Renewal Area to the Debt Service Fund, and the Central Corridor to the Debt Service Fund. That I actually did an analysis this past fall and did a deeper dive into TIF, and I broke them out. Some of it was due to the fact that we had refinanced a previous bond, so it brought the amount down. But that would be why those changed. And then in green, they were included in the budget, but with the wrong fund or account. And these, again, some of it's because at the time you estimate, for instance, with hotel motel dollars, we have a program in which some dollars are allocated to city and some dollars are allocated externally. And that breakup of what that ends up being is dependent on how the committee decides to award the funds. So in this particular year, they had decided to award more to the city than we had put in the budget. And so that changed that. And then if you go and look at 140 through 145 listed there in green, those are urban renewal area funds. And they were for an economic development loan, which basically is the funding that we pay. We pay Medco for economic development support. We pay Dorsey and Whitney all those bills for the different loan, our TIF agreements and urban renewal loans that we do. And so all of those actually come out of the general fund. So it just was improperly placed in the budget to go to the sanitary sewer replacement fund. And then the final one there is just kind of a change in accounting. When we did the time of the budget, I had estimated that we would expense because the urban forest fund was paying for a portion of it and the capital projects was paying for a portion of it. It was just really where does that project sit, and I changed that. So I just estimated that what you'd really want are the changes from the actual budget. Are there questions that I did not answer?
Ms. Goodell, you go, please.
No, I think I appreciate that. I really just wanted this pulled out of consent, and I appreciate this is the first time we've seen it like this. I know this is kind of a new format, so just some general better understanding which you've provided. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leanne. Just as a little side note on this, some of these things that we're asking for, some of these, there are some new procedures in handling in these instruments and products that we're using. So sometimes the council is going to be pulling things for some further discussion. So that's why we seen that come off there. And again, we appreciate those details. Those are greatly appreciated. We're all trying to learn and understand reporting processes. So with that being said, that brings us to approving this item. If there's no additional questions, we'll move forward with that. All those in favor of resolution number 27746, approving fiscal year 2018-2019 budget transfers, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes. Thank you. On to public services, and Mr. Brandt.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve ordinance number 19-19, amending Chapter 99 of the Sanitary Sewer Ordinance, increasing monthly domestic and industrial user charges from $2.30 to $3.80, and reducing the service charge from $8 to $2. This is the final consideration.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 19-19, amending Chapter 99 of the Sanitary Sewer Ordinance, increasing monthly domestic and industrial user charges from $2.30 to $3.80, and reducing the service charge from $8 to $2 as final consideration. Discussion? At this point, I would like to just again ask for or express a thank you to your board in working with these numbers. I know we're seeing some increases in some areas and significant decreases in others. So we're constantly keeping our public at first hand here on this and trying to keep these expenses down as our city continues to grow and projects are coming up with expansions and the way we handle these and the conduit that this product is delivered, it's very, very expensive. So again, kudos to your board and department, Ryan. Thank you. All those in favor of this ordinance 19-19 say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Ms. Cadelia.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve ordinance number 19-18, amending Chapter 105 of the Solid Waste Ordinance and establishing base monthly collection fees at $15.50 and extra bag tags at $2.50 and special collection rates at $40. This is the final consideration.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 19-18, amending Chapter 105 of the Solid Waste Ordinance and establishing base monthly collection fees at $15.50, extra bag tags at $2.50, and special collection rates at $40. Final consideration. Discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Go get your orange tags tonight if you use these while they're still $2, because that's obviously changing after tonight's vote. So there you go. That's all I have.
You might, you might pick those up right when you're getting your lottery ticket.
Yeah, there you go.
Things are hot in the area right now. All those in favor of ordinance number 19-18, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you so much. We're moving on through public safety, through parks, on to engineering. And at this particular time, we have our first public hearing. This is going to be public hearing regarding the 2019 3rd Avenue Rehabilitation Project. Mike, do you have anything you want to add to this before we open the public hearing?
I'll just give a brief staff report on it.
Thank you.
So this is 3rd Avenue between 31st Street and 35th Street. This is going through and doing patchwork similar to what we did on 31st Street a couple years ago, and then milling it. It'll be done in several phases, so all businesses still have access during that project. For the project, we did receive 2 bids. The low bid was from Eastern Iowa Excavating at $233,276.65, which was 82.5% of the engineer's estimate. Work is to begin by August 5th of 19 with 45 working days, and then there's liquidated damages of $500 per day.
Perfect. Thank you. Would there be a chance that we could see a map of this, or is
If you
would it
can
be
switch the...
too difficult to switch that around? I appreciate that. Oh, this is high tech.
Can you do it right from there now?
Got dark.
Wow.
So each of the colors is one phase of the project. So they would start from the north of Peg Pierce Softball Complex, and then working east towards 35th. So they would do a section at a time, open that section back up. So there might be a business where you have to access it from either the west or the east, depending on where we're at in the project.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Vanna. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. This again will be public hearing for the 2019 3rd Avenue Rehabilitation. If anybody would like to come speak to the council in favor of this item, please do so. with that being said, we'll move over to those that would be opposed it or would need some follow-up information. Please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Thank you very much. Ms. Atkins.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve resolution number 27747, accepting bids and awarding contract to Eastern Iowa Excavating and Concrete LLC regarding the 2019 Third Avenue Rehabilitation Project in the amount of $233,276.65.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 27747, accepting bids and awarding contract to Eastern Iowa Excavating and Concrete LLC regarding the 2019 Third Avenue Rehabilitation Project in the amount of $233,276.65. At this time, we bring the discussion back up to the council. Will there be any discussion on this item? Very good. Seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 27747 say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. At this time, our next public hearing will be regarding the 2019 sidewalk project. Mike, do we have any presentation on this one?
Yep. So similar, I'll just give a quick staff report. So this is combining both our ramp project, which is a Department of Justice requirement to get our ramps that are ADA compliant, and then also our sidewalk assessment program into one, just because they were small projects, so we got better numbers. So this map kind of shows all the different locations, so it's hitting quite a bit of the city in small aspects. For this one, we did receive 4 bids, with the low bid from Curtis Contracting for $144,480.00, which was 92.3% of the engineer's estimate. It also has a late start date of August 5th of 19 with 50 working days and liquidated damages in the amount of $300 per day.
Very good. Thank you for that update. At this time, I'll open up the public hearing for regarding the 2018 sidewalk project. Anybody who would like to come before the council to in favor of this item, please do so. And at this time, anybody who would like to come before the council to speak against or has further questions they would like to ask of this project, please do so. Thank you. Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Mr. Jensen?
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve resolution number 27748, accepting bids and awarding contract to Curtis Contracting Corporation regarding the 2019 sidewalk project in the amount of $144,480.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 27748, accepting bids and awarding contract to Curtis Contracting Corporation regarding the 2018 sidewalk project in the amount of $144,480. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of resolution number 27748 say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Our next public hearing is in regards to 2274 Fifth Avenue Property Disposal Project. Do we have a brief discussion or a brief presentation on this one, sir?
Yes, so this is a property that we bought as part of the 6th Avenue corridor project. With this project, there's obviously some remnant buildings to be demoed, and so we did get 4 quotes. The low quote was from Abode Construction at $29,200. And so this is just cleanup of the project. However, we are recommending that we hold the public hearing, but for the next item that we table it due to some legal issues.
So just for clarification, we will hold the public hearing on that, even though that we are...
It was noticed.
Very good. Okay. At this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing. This will be in regards to location 2274 Fifth Avenue property disposal. Anybody who would like to come before the council to talk in favor of this item, please do so. Seeing none, and all those who would like to speak against this project or would have like some more additional information, please do so. Very good. Public hearing is now closed. We'll move on to the next item. Mr. Brandt?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve resolution number 27749, accepting bids and awarding contract to Abode Construction Incorporated regarding the 2274 Fifth Avenue property disposal project in the amount of $29,200.
Second. It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 27749, accepting bids and awarding contract to Abode Construction Incorporated regarding the 2274 Fifth Avenue property disposal project in the amount of $29,200.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move that we table resolution number 27749.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to table resolution number 27749. Discussion?
Second.
Seeing none, all those in favor of tabling resolution number 27749 say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. At this time, 27749 is tabled. Thank you. Ms. Gedalia.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve resolution number 27750, approving change order number 1 with Price Industrial Electric regarding the Highway 13 and Hennessy Parkway traffic signal and turn lane improvements project regarding the traffic signal pole vendor modifications in the amount of $4,000.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 27750, approving change order number 1 with Price Industrial Electric regarding the Highway 13 and Hennessy Parkway's traffic signal and turn lane improvements project regarding the traffic signal pole vendor modifications in the amount of $4,000. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of resolution 27750 say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Ms. Atkins.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve resolution number 27751, approving the residential on-street parking for disabled policy.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 27751, approving the residential on-street parking for disabled policy. Discussion. Ms. Gedalia.
It's kind of indirect, but I just want to thank Mike for queuing these up as we go through the votes so that the public has more insight into what we're doing. Because on Tuesday, we spent a lot of time talking about this and less time tonight, and a lot of you aren't here on the Tuesday meeting, so thanks. This is helpful.
Very good to point out. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. This is very educational to be able to see these items come before us, not only in the agenda, but through the visual modes. So again, just reiterating, a lot of this stuff is discussed on the work schedule, which is the Tuesday before the council meeting. So thank you for that. All those in favor of resolution number 27751 say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion directing staff to present proposed modifications to the speed limits along Highway 13.
Second. It has been moved and seconded to approve it has been moved and seconded on the motion directing staff to present proposed modifications to the speed limits along Highway 13. Discussion? Mr. Jensen?
Yeah, we had some discussion on Tuesday about how far north we were going to make a recommendation for the 45 mile per hour. What is our recommendation going to include, or have you finalized that yet?
From the feedback I got from council, I was going to propose Lynn Air to 29th be 45, and then also to the Culvers to the east be 45 as well, unless you guys wanted to deviate from that conversation.
All right.
What about, sorry,
No, go right
what
ahead,
about
Mr. Brandt.
after from 29th to 35th? We go 50, 55?
We can ask what, like I said, it does, what you guys ask for doesn't mean that's what the
Right.
DOT is going to give you, but yeah, if you want to ask to 50 to 35th, then we can do that.
What is it now?
It
And that stretch?
is 65. It turns to 65 north of 29th Avenue right now.
We talk about going from 45 to 65 in that 6-block stretch?
Yeah, I mean, wherever it is that they end up transitioning it, they would step it up. They're not going to.
Okay, they'll transition that on their own?
Yep.
All right, fair enough.
But if you want it to be 50 through at least 35th, we do want to ask them that. But I know, as you guys discussed, it's gravel. It's likely going to stay gravel for a while, but if you want the cars to be slower there.
By the time they make up their mind, the DOT, it may not be gravel anymore.
Isn't that the truth?
It did take 2 years last time, so.
Exactly.
I'd be more in favor of us picking something lower than 65 for that stretch. Whether it's 50 or 55, either one of those is fine with me as a transition phase. But if they're going to do it, why don't we at least come up with a recommendation? I don't know, everybody. I'm fine with either one of those numbers, but not jumping right from 65, so.
I say 50.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a more gradual climb makes sense, but I'm not married to any specific number, so whatever consensus is.
Do you feel comfortable with that, Mike?
I can do 50 if that's what the council wants. That's fine.
All right.
Okay. We'll go with that. I appreciate that. I know there's a lot of details in the distance between speed limits and how they can accelerate and decelerate through those, and I'm sure the DOT is going to advise us on that. So all those in favor of making the motion and directing staff to present the proposed modifications to the speed limits on Highway 13 say aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed say no. Thank you. Motion carries on that one. Mr. Brandt.
Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion to direct staff to contact all property owners that the proposed floodplain map touches when the 90-day review period starts.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to direct staff to contact all property owners that are proposing the floodplain map touches within the 90-day review period starts. Discussion. That was a difficult sentence to read. And I'm not that good at reading. All right, seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you, and thanks for the work on that as well, Mike. That's a lot of work on that. Ms. Gedalia, we're on to the community development now.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve ordinance number 19-20, approving a rezoning to PDR, Planned Development Residential, SR-3, Suburban Medium Density Single Family Residential, and SR-4, Suburban Two-Family Residential for property located north of 29th Avenue on either side of Winchester Drive Extended. This is Robson Homes, the second consideration.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 19-20, approving a rezoning to PDR, Planned Development Residential, SR3, Suburban Medium Density Single Family Residential, and SR4, Suburban Two-Family Residential for property located north of 29th Avenue on either side of Winchester Drive Extended. Robson Homes, second consideration. Discussion. Ms. Gedalia.
Yep, I just want to see if staff needed anything further. I know Tuesday we talked about maybe backing off requiring the black fence, but making it if people wanted a fence, it had to be that type, but putting more of a natural landscape boundary there. Do we need to do anything at this point to formalize that?
No, we did reach out to Robson Homes, and a representative is in the audience this evening. We did not have a chance to touch base until right before the meeting. So we'll work, in our conversation, there was support for that.
Okay.
And so we'll work forward with that and bring the kind of a finality to that at the final reading, if that's all right with council. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you, Tom. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of ordinance number 19-20 say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Ms. Atkins.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve motion to receive and file correspondence from the Marion Municipal Airport Committee regarding the land use plan amendment.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to receive and file correspondence from the Marion Municipal Airport Committee regarding the land use plan amendment. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Jensen.
Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion to receive and file correspondence from Bradley and Riley PC and Atlas LP Company LLC regarding the Marion Airport Comprehensive Plan Amendment. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve to receive and file the correspondence from Bradley and Riley PC and Atlas LP Company LLC regarding the Marion Airport Comprehensive Plan Amendment. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. This next item is another public hearing regarding an amendment to the Marion Comprehensive Plan establishing airport and airport overlay designations for the city of Marion. Tom, do you have any prelude you'd like to say before we move into the public hearing?
Yes, if you don't mind, I'd like to just provide a little brief overview. I think that council's been briefed on this, and I think there's been a lot of coverage of what's being proposed in the public as well, and we did do a pretty large mailing, so I'm assuming that there are folks in the audience that will want to speak to this issue. But I just want to provide a briefing. Obviously, as questions come up, if the council so chooses, I'd be happy to answer those if there's details. The first thing I'd like to do is just kind of outline what we're here tonight to discuss and what we're talking about. It's one public hearing regarding an amendment to the city's comprehensive plan and the land use plan associated with the city's comprehensive plan. So the comp plan is a long-range vision of the city. It outlines growth of the city and how the council, the planning commission, and through community engagement, we see the community growing into the future. It's usually a 20-year plan, and we do updates on them every 10 years just to kind of make sure that we're moving in the right direction. So a part of this is taking a look at what we have from facilities, and over time we buy facilities. In this case, we bought an airport. That was not outlined in our comp plan when we developed it in 08-09. And so here we are. We've acquired an airport. It's been annexed into the city, something that did not exist at the time we had it, at the time the comprehensive plan was developed. So the first thing is just to address the amendments to the city's comprehensive plan and include that in the long-range planning document as a community facility. And then also within that comp plan, we're adding the language that is provided for in the ALP, the 2017 ALP, which was provided to the council from the Marion Advisory Committee related to the airport. So what we're just trying to do is make sure that the comprehensive plan reflects city facilities and the goals and objectives that were surrounded when that plan was adopted. So on Tuesday I provided some textual documentation. I'll have it on the overhead, but honestly it's very difficult to read. I'd be happy to give handouts to those in the audience if they'd like to see that after the meeting if they'd care to. So the other part of this is a land use map amendment. And I think when we talk about the comprehensive plan and land use, this is where most people go. And that is really just outlining what land uses we see developing into the future if, in fact, they do develop. I think sometimes there's some confusion on how the community does develop. Developers buy ground and develop the property. It's not the city's role to buy property and develop the property. And so our comprehensive plan and the land use plan map is a guide to how that growth should occur. The basis for that the basis for zoning, what comes with development, is the land use map amendment. I've just provided here the lower graphic illustrates a typical area in Marion where we're talking about land use. That's County Home Road's intersection with Lucor Road. It shows a commercial node surrounded by multifamily or higher density residential. The yellow area is single family. And as you can see, we're kind of charting the course for future road layouts. That's Artesian Road and also Echo Hill Road as it swings up north of Hunter's Ridge. It doesn't look like a high detailed technical map, but when plats come in, they're required to reflect how the land use plan that the city has in place in their planning documents. So we can review plats and future zoning based on this land use map. So it is a very important document, and I just want the council and those in the public to understand what we're here tonight to talk about is including the airport consistent with the airport layout plan from 2017 in our long-range plan with both the east and west, or east-west, north-south runway. The project area and the area that we're talking about, I think everybody's pretty aware where the airport is, but it does touch a large portion of the community and it extends into Lynn County. And you can see from this graphic that the extent of the conical and the horizontal surfaces that will ultimately become part of a zoning district classification do extend well into Marion and then well past the boundaries of the city and into the county. This is just providing the textual context in the comp plan, and it just outlines the policy documents or the policies that were created in the ALP. If there's questions on this, I can read them later during the public hearing if there's a specific desire for those. The council has had these, and I would ask if there's clarification that I can do that. So this graphic illustrates the current comprehensive plan. This vicinity here, I know it's a little difficult to see. Let me see if I can get my... So this is Business Highway 151, Highway 13, Seacrest Road, Hinman Road. So this is the eastern part of the community. The blue represents business office, the purple is industrial, and the red is commercial. The airport, this map's a little bit old, and you can see that the corporate boundaries were here. We actually land use designated the airport at that time because it was a private facility as an industrial use. And the airport lies right in here, literally just east of this line is the runway as it sits. So we were accommodating the airport when we did this, but it was just as an industrial use because it was a private operation. What's being proposed? Is to amend the land use map to include the primary surface of the airport and its full build out consistent with the 2017 ALP in the land use plan. You can see that we didn't really mess with a lot of the other land use categories in the vicinity because they are all business, business park, office uses, and industrial uses, which are consistent with an airport use. And so we didn't really mess with too much of the land use around that. I'd point out that into the county, a lot of that is agriculture. And I know there will be folks that don't agree with me with this statement, but generally speaking, agriculture is a consistent use with an airport. We've all landed in an airplane. When you look out your window and you land in an airplane in Iowa, what do you see? It's agricultural uses. And I think that's just an important note. Now, I know folks will say that there are some impacts, and there may be from height restrictions when the zoning gets discussed, but at this point, we're talking about land use classifications and compatibility with existing land use, and I think it's generally accepted that agriculture is an acceptable use next to an airport, as well as industrial and business office operations. I just wanted to point out, because I think as we talk about land use, it's very difficult not to go down the road to the next step, and that is zoning. The zoning that would be established if the land use is approved and is moved forward, it essentially establishes some zones in and around the airport built around the full build out of the ALP. Most of the ground that would be covered is really restricted to 150-foot height restriction. Now, there are some areas right near the airport and in the approach zones that would have more restrictions based on land use and some additional height restrictions below that 150. Obviously, as you get closer to the airport, those are going to be maintained. But 90% of the property restrictions is related to 150-foot height requirement. So the light beige and the green area on this map, those are the conical and the horizontal surfaces. The area that is those colors, that's where that 150-foot ceiling is established, and the other areas have a reduced height requirement, which we can talk about, but honestly, that's something I think that will come more as a conversation as we proceed into zoning. So really, I think that from a process perspective, the City Planning Commission reviewed the land use map amendment and the proposal, and the Planning Commission has recommended approval of this and brought it forward to the council. I think what the desired outcome of this would be to proceed with the land use map amendment and then also get some direction on how to proceed with the zoning. I would point out that there's been a lot of I'd say a flurry, that might be an appropriate term, of emails and correspondence and communications to the council and to staff regarding the issue of the airport and the comp plan amendment. I think a lot of the comments have been received. Some are related to some of the older items, and that is how the airport was acquired, some of the details of the capital improvement plan established in the ALP, all relative to future build-out of the airport, no question about it. But really, the context for this evening is whether to proceed with a land use map amendment. The land use map amendment does not tie us to capital improvements. We have capital improvement plans for all kinds of plans that the city has. Those would all be run through the council. No money can be spent on that without authorization from the council. So I just wanted to clarify that. And that many of the regulations that I think folks are concerned about, which by all means I want to make sure that we address those concerns, are really related to the zoning. And I think you'll find as we've moved through this that there's a lot of thoughts about the zoning, but there's never been a real clear understanding of how that will lay out. So if the comp plan amendment moves forward, there would be a public hearing where we would specifically outline the regulations established within the zoning. Staff has not proceeded to create a full zoning ordinance because we know that there's some questions about this, and so what we would do is make sure that there is a briefing to the council on how that would proceed, and then we'd like to meet with folks that have concerns individually and talk through those with them. So with that, I would just pause and ask if there's questions of the council for me, and go from there.
So we'll bring that back up to the council here. Is there any questions for Mr. Trahern? This time? No? Okay. All right, so as we go into the public hearing, a little bit of housekeeping again. What I'd like to ask is that the individuals form a line up the middle of the row there. I will give you plenty of time to speak. If I feel that you've exhausted that time, I will ask you to kind of wrap it up. At the end of that, it'll give you an opportunity to speak to the council to answer your questions and ask the council to ask any questions of you. At the end of that, we will bring it back up to the council into the next item, and the council then will continue discussion amongst ourselves on this particular item. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing, and I'd like to ask any of those in favor of this item to please come forward. You'll need to state your name and address, and please be sure to fill out one of those gold rod papers, okay?
Well, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and the council. I am definitely a supporter of the airport. Tonight,
I'm sorry to interrupt you already. Could you give us your name and your address, please?
Bill Gate, 2695 Pebble Creek Drive.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Just a formality, sir.
Understood. What I would like to address for the next few minutes, if I may, with your permission, is an issue that has been discussed quite a bit, and that is the environmental noise levels around the airport. And for full disclosure, I am a member of the Marion Airport Municipal Airport Committee and a beginning student pilot, I guess I should say. So what I would like to do is bring a little bit of science to the discussion of noise levels and aircraft noise mitigation, if I may. First of all, I'd like to define what is noise. So sounds are mechanical waves, and noise is a mixture of mechanical waves. And noise can be sometimes distracting and even painful. And so noise and other sounds are measured scientifically in terms of something called decibels. Decibels, SPL, dB, sound pressure levels. And it is not a definite linear relationship, because when I show you some items that are at 100 decibels, that is 8 times a level of 70 decibels. So this is kind of a logarithmic system. So higher levels are much more louder than lower levels. Sounds can be reduced by being distant from the sound source. either by, or if the sound source is way above us, and the sound sources can be attenuated or reduced if we're in a car or a house. Now, approximately 70 dB SPL is taken as kind of a reference level. It's kind of the halfway point between really loud, unpleasant noises, and anything below that is kind of, it's okay. It doesn't hurt your ears, or it's not unpleasant. So here is a sound pressure level chart. And if you'll notice at the bottom is the threshold of hearing. And if you go right above that at about 12 decibels, you'll see that that is the rustling of leaves in a forest. That's the sound pressure level of leaves rustling in a forest. If you go up around 70 decibels, you'll see that that is normal background music in a house. If you go down to about 42 decibels, that's supposed to be the sound pressure level in a house, or a office. Now let's go up to 135 decibels, and you will see that that is the sound pressure level from a live rock band. And notice on the right side, it says pain, unbearable, or whatever. So if you're at a rock concert, the sound pressure level is going to be at or above 135 decibels, and that's considered painful. So any questions on this particular chart? So here's some comparative levels of environmental noise. What's interesting about this is that a car wash at 20 feet away is 89 decibels. A food blender at 3 feet is about 88 decibels. A power lawnmower is at about 96 decibels. And this is taken from Industrial Noise Control website. You can look it up or Google it. A passenger motorcycle is at approximately 91 decibels. I have to say, except for my neighbor's motorcycle. A passenger car passing you on Route 151 at 65 miles per hour is approximately 75 decibels. I actually measured the next one. This is the Route 151 at 25 feet from the edge of the highway, just about a quarter mile from the 151 intersection, and the noise level was 87 decibels. A business jet flyover with the new turbofan engines is around 82 decibels at 1,000 feet. I attempted to go down to the Eastern Iowa Airport and measure sound pressure levels, but I was told I didn't have the proper clearance. So I'm sorry I didn't get an actual measurement, but I hope to in the future. Propeller planes, we'll look at that on the next slide. The other thing I wanted to show was the farm tractor. Farm tractor noise at 15 feet is 105 decibels. Now this is 8.2 times the reference hearing level of 70 decibels. So I think we can see that many home and farm implements and equipment has higher sound levels than any aircraft that we're going to experience at Marion. Now here's some actual single engine data measurements that I took at Marion the other day, at the Marion Airport, with the help of one of our other students and an instructor. I went down to the center of the runway, about halfway at about 1,500 feet, and I thought it'd be safer to stand about 60 feet from the edge. So here are some measurements. When there was no traffic at the airport, the noise level was 45 decibels. There was a crosswind flight above the airport at about halfway right over me, and that measured 50 decibels. Now remember, 70 decibels is the difference in levels between starting to get loud and starting to get soft. Aircraft idling into the hangar, I was able to catch the noise from one of our Cessnas going into the hangar. That was 87 decibels, but I was 30 feet from that aircraft. Takeoff of a Cessna 172 on runway 35, that measured 87 decibels. The same Cessna landing was approximately 54 decibels. Again, going back to the previous data on the previous page, passenger jet or business jet flyover with the new turbofan engines is 82 decibels at 1,000 feet. So again, I want to iterate that many homes and farm sound sources are louder than any aircraft that we have at the Marion Airport. Now I'd like to discuss aircraft noise and mitigation. All aircraft that are registered with the FAA, their noise levels can be found in CFR 14.36. Now, reduction in aircraft noise over populated areas can be reduced using certain traffic patterns. Now, most airports have preferred traffic patterns. So what I'm going to show you now is a diagram of a hypothetical airport in which a pilot is practicing touch and goes. It's not to scale, of course. So here's our hypothetical airport. And up in the upper left corner is a populated area. And let's assume the wind is out of the northwest like this. The pilot down here would be taking off. He would do a right leg turn, and then he would do a downwind turn, and then another crosswind turn and land and take off again. So avoiding this populated area, but flying over this agricultural area. Now, if the wind was out of the west and northwest, like this, the pilot would be taking off from here, making a left leg turn, a downwind turn, a crosswind leg turn, and a final approach turn. So noise can be mitigated if there are definite flight patterns. Now, what I should mention is that please notice that if the wind is out of the opposite direction I just described, you simply go the other direction, but it's still over agricultural land, not over the populated area. So, in summary, I hope a level of scientific realism has been brought into the discussion, and that we find that many homes and farms have a much higher level of ambient noises than do the type of aircraft that fly into and out of the Marion Municipal Airport. Lastly, aircraft flight patterns can be or have been established to avoid flying over populated areas. I should say they can be established, and some airports have established preferred flight patterns to mitigate aircraft noise. So I just want to thank the council for allowing me to make this presentation on aircraft noise.
Oh, sir, did you sneak in a grandchild in there? From the council.
No, mine are all older.
I'm sorry. Great then.
Random
Any questions? First of all, thank you, Phil. We appreciate that. Any questions from the council on this brief presentation? We appreciate that. Seeing none, thank you very much.
Okay,
we
thank
appreciate that.
Hello, Mike Much. I live at 4375 Pioneer Trail Southeast.
I'm sorry, your name was Mike?
Mike
Mike,
Much.
yes, welcome.
Thank you. So I am for the development of the Marion Airport. I'm a pilot there. I'm actually a flight instructor there. I also fly in and out of there. We have family has a plane there. We've been there for many years. But more importantly, I use it for business. And so I go to and from all over the region. There's oftentimes I have to cancel flights or I'm not able to make the flights because of the weather, because we don't have an improved runway or we don't have improved approaches. So I end up having to divert, or in some cases I have to cancel my flights. And so being able to make those improvements to the Marion Airport are really important. It also brings in a lot of my suppliers, the folks that come in, and then my customers come here. And oftentimes they like to fly into the Marion Airport because it's more convenient than the Cedar Rapids Airport. It's also closer to our plant, so it's quite a bit easier to come in and out from customers and suppliers. Another point I'd like to make is that the Marion Flying, we recently have started a Marion Flying Club. So there's a club that we decided to base at Marion. It's called Executive Flight, and it's exclusively for membership in that flight club. And we could have based almost anywhere, and we chose Marion. Primary reason is what this council is about to vote on and would subsequently vote on in the future, and that's the development of the Marion Airport. We surveyed flight clubs and pilot populations from Iowa City all the way to Waterloo, and we realized there was quite a need, there's quite a demand. In fact, we have a waiting list right now to join the club, and we're waiting to purchase our first aircraft until we know that this project is going to go forward. We have a hangar at Marion. We're ready to invest in Marion. We've got several planes on order potentially to bring into Marion, and as an example, several flight clubs in the area have anywhere from 20 to 35 members. We already have a waiting list in that range. And these are all folks that would be wanting to bring planes in and bring economic development dollars into the area. And these are average folks. Clubs are great because they disperse the cost of ownership of an aircraft. Many of you probably realize that owning an aircraft is quite expensive, or can be depending on the aircraft. Flight clubs are great because they're part of the community. An average individual can become a pilot and own a share in an aircraft and feel like they have realize some of their dreams as being a pilot, or use it for business, as I do. An aircraft is a vital part of what I use. It's not only my business in aerospace and defense, but it's also a big part of what I do day to day. And being able to operate in an aircraft allows me to be in places. I could be easily to Minnesota to Missouri in the same day by being able to operate in a personal aircraft. I couldn't do that commercially. It's impossible. There's those of you who've tried to fly regionally, you've got to connect in Chicago, you've got to connect in Minneapolis, and if you're trying to go to smaller towns, general aviation is vital, and business aviation is vital to the community. When our company chooses to fly into local airports, we don't choose to go to O'Hare, we don't choose to go to Midway. They're too expensive to land in, the traffic's terrible, they're too far away from our customers. We go where? We go to general aviation, business-friendly airports. You may not know this, but Cedar Rapids is not a general aviation business-friendly airport. In fact, it's on AOPA. I'm sure you're familiar with AOPA. They're a very large pilot group, and both airlines and as well as business aviators. They're in the top 100 worst general aviation airports because they don't support general aviation. Their fuel prices are too high. They're extremely expensive to land there, and they really don't want our traffic there. And they've made that perfectly clear, which is part of the main reason why we've decided to base at Marion. Because if we want a general aviation-friendly airport, we want the opportunity for business to come in and out. And I'm just super excited that this is even an opportunity for the council. I'm also excited about the economic development that's come out to this side of the county. Prospect Meadows, several areas that continue to grow. I think that's a great opportunity for this airport, where it's located, to service this side of the county. That's pretty much my comments. Any questions?
I do have a quick question. If
Sure.
you can just provide a little more detail. You said you have to cancel flights, or sometimes you can't do some of your business. Can you just provide a little more context to that?
Sure, absolutely. So oftentimes there are weather conditions which you could fly into and out of an improved airport. So if it was a wider runway, one with appropriate lighting, one with instrument approaches, that would be of the appropriate size to get an instrument approach, would allow smaller craft as well as medium-sized aircraft, which is really, I think, our target market there, to come in and out of that aircraft and do business, bring customers and suppliers in, and then go out to visit our customers and suppliers. We don't have those capabilities today at Marion. So what ends up happening is we either have to divert or we have to cancel the flight.
The wider and lighting are the two things you just spoke about.
Lighting is critical.
Okay.
So you have to have standard lighting, and then you have to have a standard instrument approach. And of course, not being an expert on all of the rules around that, you have to have a certain improved condition of the runway, sizes, clearances, zoning, those types of things, to be able to ensure that obviously you can land safely if you are in the clouds and you have to come down out of the clouds and find the airport.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Mike? Mike, I have a couple questions
Sure.
for you, sir, before you leave. How many members did you say you had in your flight club?
So we have a waiting list right now of approximately 30 folks. We haven't we are a public corporation now. We have 8 paid members, and we have another 30 on the list.
Okay. I think I might have heard from all of them here last week, so.
You may have.
You have, I hate to put you on the spot. Could
No.
you just tell me, because it's a question that keeps mumbling around, and I like to just, I'm very, very direct. How many of your members are actually citizens of Marion?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I can certainly follow up with that information.
Okay.
But if I were to hazard to guess, more than half. In fact, most of the members that are on either the waiting list or in our club are actually employed by a very large aerospace company in this county. You could probably guess which one that is, and that might be my employer as well. And so those are folks that are obviously big aviation enthusiasts, and quite a few of them are residents of Marion.
Sure. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Without any other questions, we'll release you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome and good evening.
Hello, good evening. My name is Justin Reddig. I live at 1375 Parkview Drive here in Marion. And so I'm just going to read some things I wrote, and then I'm going to share my heart a little bit about it. So I'm actually a current student of PNN Flight and Charter. About a year ago, the Lord had put it on my heart to get into aviation and something that I'd want to do. So I started looking into my options for, do I go to Cedar Rapids with the big airport and the control tower, or do I go to Marion? And I chose to go to Marion, and the folks there are just top-notch, absolute. I mean, I don't regret my decision whatsoever, and I know there's others behind me that are also looking at the same path. You know, I believe that the future improvements and expansions are critical when it comes to the ability of aviators living in and around Marion. The reason I say in and around Marion is because I understand this is a Marion City Council meeting, but let's face it, if we look long-term, then, I mean, Springville is growing. I mean, this is what happens, right? We have Marion, but then Marion turns into pretty much Springville, just like Cedar Rapids turns into basically Hiawatha and Marion. Yes, we're all individual cities, but it's about future growth and expansion is kind of how I'm looking at things. You know, I noticed that many of the topics tonight have been geared towards the betterment, the future growth, the expansion, and attraction of people to come to our communities, whether we talk about sidewalk repair of various places, or, you know, cleaning up and removing and developing, you know, taking down homes that are just eyesores and in the way because we want to develop things, or even just talking about the speed limit on Highway 13, which I'm guessing is more for further growth and just to enhance our community and, of course, the safety of everybody in the community. But I think if I'm gathering it right, that also goes around growth of the community just because of the influx of development that has come into that area. I know I personally know people that would like to get training in various aircraft, including twin engine, both piston and turbine engines at Marion, but due to the length of the runway and the condition of the runway, then it kind of forces us to go somewhere outside our community, which I don't want to do that. I like my instructor. I like the people at the front desk when I go in. They're courteous. They're top-notch when it comes to business. They care about me personally. I appreciate that. And so by looking at all these land and zoning issues, then I feel like this is a critical time to where we can make some of these decisions to enable that future growth of allowing, like I said, not only the Marion residents like myself to stay in the community for their training and not be forced to go to a larger airport, or I know I've heard of people having to travel like an hour away or more to go get quality training. Well, we have the quality instructors, we have the quality P&M charter and flight school here. It's just a matter of bringing the runway up to the standards and the airport facilities up to the standards to accommodate the high class of people that we have available to run it, is what it seems like to me. I also know of different businessmen in the area that actually, you start talking about a little bit larger aircraft. I'm not talking about an aircraft that carries, 50 or 100 passengers, or even more like you might get at the Eastern Iowa airport, but even just twin engine aircraft, like I was saying, whether piston or turbine, turboprop aircraft that can carry, let's say 10 people, and use that for the purposes like Mike was talking. But what you get into when you get into the twin engine aircraft is you get longer range, you generally get a little bit more comfortability in the plane itself, because generally it's going to have a little bit wider wingspan, which is going to ride better. Generally you're going to get a little bit higher elevation, but then also, like Mike was talking, one of the hindrances is not only the runway length and the condition and the width of it and the lighting, but also just the lack of the instrument approach procedures, because as you could imagine, even if you're not interested in being a pilot, if you have to come down through the clouds and next thing you know, you have to know where you're going. It has to be precise. And if you don't have that, then Marion as a city is forcing people to go to the Eastern Iowa airport. And you might think, yeah, that's close enough. Well, I understand, but if we're thinking 5, 10, 15, 20 years down for the city of Marion and the future growth, because eventually, let's face it, the Marion airport's going to be right in the middle of everything. Right now it's not. It's on the outside. But I know me as being a young adult with a wife of 15 years and looking to have children, I look at more than just what's happening to me right now. And so, I believe, that it is imperative that the Marion Airport's able to grow and improve their facilities. And, I definitely support the land and the zoning, and I look forward to the future opportunities that I have at that facility. And so I thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you, Justin. Any questions for Justin from the council? Seeing none, thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Again, just as a reminder, this is the public hearing regarding the amendment of the Marion Comprehensive Plan establishing the airport and airport overlay designations. Welcome.
Hello. I'm Curtis Grimm. I live at 3106 Carla, over on Circle on Marion.
I'm sorry, your first name's Craig?
Curtis.
Curtis, thank you. Welcome, Curtis.
So I've never been to one of these. I didn't even realize you were going to let people speak. So
you're doing very good.
Really prepared.
You're doing really good.
But this is very important to me. Aviation's a big part of my life, and with my job, and a lot of people in the Cedar Rapids, Marion area, it's pretty important. And aviation is growing, and the more it grows, the more technologies come in, the more I want to see my city be prepared for the growth in aviation, the different types of technologies that are coming our way. And I love to see that we have plans for roads and improving the downtown area. I like to see that growth. But this is a part of it, and it's the same thing to me. The Sky is probably the largest road out there as far as the planes that are allowed to bring people in, whether you live here or you're bringing customers in, or like Mike was talking about. And most of the points already made both by those guys, I fully support and want to reiterate. But the biggest piece that I want to add is that technology does change, and I know people are upset about the noise and there's you're normally thinking about the most noisy airplanes that you hear, and it sticks out in your mind of what's noise, and that's not all aircraft. You don't even always notice some of the aircraft that aren't sticking out in your mind, and as aviation moves further, you're going to see lower and lower issues with noise, and aviation does go lower in cost, so you'll see more and more benefit to the general public, and as traditional aviation also moves away from the spoke and hub model for commercial aviation, you see more opportunities for people to go to these other airports outside, even though it's not the larger commercial, not obviously not what we're looking for, but you will see more aviation come around, and I just want to voice my support for the city to be ready for that. So.
Great, very good. Any questions for Curtis? Curtis, you did a great job. Thanks for coming.
Hi, my name's Cole Norton. I am the president of PNN Flight and Charter, which is flight school, aircraft rental facility on field. We're based at the Marion Airport and have been since the 1980s. I'm here to obviously speak in support of the growth of the Marion Airport. What I've put down is an article. It's from 1993. It's Anxious Wait for Airport Funding. There has always been a demand for this airport to grow, and it's not going to go away. The time to take care of it is right now. A little bit about my background. I'm a commercial pilot for single and multi-engine airplanes. I'm also a commercial pilot in rotorcraft, a certified flight instructor, advanced ground instructor, corporate pilot, and FAA safety representative. I took over PNN in 3 years ago from Jan Walton, who operated the airport back in these days when they were trying to get funding. And now that the city has been able to apply for and actually been awarded some of these grants, it's really time to get this done. What we do now under PNN is offer air tours and rides, like we'll be doing at the Flying Breakfast this Sunday. It's from 6 a.m. to noon. It'll be, I think, the 35th year or more of the Flying Breakfast. Last year, we gave airplane rides to 700 different people and families and get them introduced to aviation, and it's been about that many people every year before that. So you're looking at over 20,000 people over the years that have been introduced to aviation by PNN. We also offer flight instruction, and the last few people to talk, actually the last 3 to talk, have been or are currently our students. We have been recognized by the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association as one of the top 10 flight schools in the entire country. We also offer aerial photography and surveying, which are essential services. We also can do work for the DNR and utility companies on pipeline or power line patrols. Perhaps one of the more important services that we're offering that would interest you as far as economic development is the fact that we are FAA certified air carrier under Part 135 of the regulations, which allows us to take business people generally from A to B, from one small airport to another. On Monday, I'll be departing Marion Airport to Orange City, Iowa, which is by Sioux City, for a couple of attorneys that don't want to drive because it's a 5-hour drive, and taking the airlines would actually take about 9 hours. So we're doing business. We're flying CEOs and executives of major corporations, and we're introducing them to Marion every time we do that. Last year, we flew with over 300 students. Of that, about, I don't know what percentage of them got their certificates off the top of my head. But you may not know there is a large pilot shortage. And I forget, it says, according to the Federal Aviation Administration, there were 830 pilots in America in 1987. Over the past 3 decades, that number has decreased by 30%. So the aviation industry is in need of pilots. We're training pilots. In fact, we're one of the largest flight schools in the state and in the Midwest. And we're happy to call Marion home. However, when we talk about the charter portion of things, we've been forced to look to other airports to accommodate some of our larger aircraft, and we don't really want to be doing that. We ask that you expedite this process with a simple yes vote, and just get this approved immediately since the ALP has already been adopted. Overall, I think it's time, and this would be a good time for the city to take a stance that they own the airport and they're going to take responsibility for it and stop putting the burden on private businesses such as PNN and Luxair, and really take responsibility and let us run our businesses without having to worry about whether the airport is going to be able to grow to meet our needs. And the FAA does have a process for including obstructions on their publications. The zoning does not necessarily limit what can be built, but it does define a process. It helps the FAA define a process for how to build things that are taller. And we've been a friendly neighbor, I think, inviting dozens of schools each year to take tours, offering highly discounted airplane rides, and getting people started in aviation, doing internships, etc. The last thing I just wanted to read was from a newspaper, also the same article from 1983. Let's see. Vernon, with last name, it's a quote. Vernon, who was the Economic Development Corporation president at the time, said, "The FAA requires that a government body like a municipality take on and eventually own the airport. Vernon said that the airport is busy and most of the traffic is not Sunday flyers, but mostly contains business flights, and with the flight school making up 85% of the airport operations. He said the Cedar Rapids Airport is not suited for their needs because it is several miles away and has too much jet traffic. Smaller airplanes like to avoid bigger airports. And besides, I think the economic center for Cedar Rapids area is really close to the corner of Collins Road and First Avenue. It's believed to hold the largest flight training center in the state, which is still true today. And a preliminary study of the airport said the direction of the north-south runway should be changed to a southeast-northwest layout and that it should be paved. That means the runway would be pointed into the prevailing wind." So this has been a long time coming, and when you vote yes, you're not making a rash decision. This has been a long time in the works, and I really hope to see it get done. Thank you.
Thank you, Cole. Any questions from the council for Cole?
Good job.
Seeing none, thank you, Cole. Here's a familiar face. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Jan Walton. I live at 1660 Marion Airport Road, Marion, Iowa, right next door to the Marion Airport. And a little bit about myself. My husband and I operated the Marion Airport back in the 1980s, 90s, and up to 2015 when I sold it to Luxair. Well, I should say up to when my husband passed away in 2012, and then I sold it to Luxair in 2015. In the very beginning, Perry and I started out with 2 or 3 aircraft, a grass runway, a couple buildings, an open hangar, and by the time I sold it to Luxair, we had a blacktop runway. Hang on a second. I can't remember exactly. We started out with grass runway. We ended up with blacktop runways, 2 hangars. We ended up with 40 hangars, 1 business, and when I sold it, we ended up with 3 businesses there, which included St. Luke's Hospital. They and another company that built a set of hangars, which was included in the 40 hangars. Upon selling the business to Luxair, the airport continued to grow. Luxair cleaned up the airport, added a fuel facility, 2 new buildings. Their maintenance shop continued to grow in the fact that they had contract maintenance coming from other areas. The PNN Flight and Charter, PNN Flight School, we just heard from that. It is continually growing with students, with flight instructors, with airport activities. At present, there's about 5 businesses on field. We have the flight school. St. Luke's has changed to MedTrans, which is a nationwide medical facility for flying flights. And flight schools, the Luxair, PNN, Fret Hangars, MedTrans, Walton Aviation, and you heard from the Flying Club that's been here. What I'm trying to say is, ever since the 1980s, the Marion Airport has grown. It will continue to grow. And it is very important that this comprehensive plan amendment needs to be passed for safety reasons. Safety reasons is to protect the asset of the city, protect the airport and the city's airspace, protect the farmers who surround the airport and all the city's residential people, and of course the pilots and the passengers. The Marion Airport represents the city. It is Marion Airport. It is the city of Marion. The airport is a gateway to the city. It needs to have a safe environment, and this plan will help provide a safe environment. The Marion Airport is on all national aviation charts and maps and government database. Everybody knows where we are. Everybody knows we exist in the aviation world, the FAA, the government. The passage of this amendment will help in guidelines in keeping the airspace under control. It will help control help the amount of control around the airport and to protect the city of Marion and its residents. That's basically what I wanted to say. It's been growing. It will continue to grow. We need this amendment to be passed for the city's sake, for the aviation people's sake, and for everybody who lives in the city of Marion. Any questions?
Thank you, Jan. Any questions from the council for Jan?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Good evening.
Good evening. Kyle Setrum, address 1742 Parrot Drive. I didn't realize we could talk tonight either, so I'm in the same boat as Kurt. I work with Kurt as well. I'm also on Mike's list for his flight club. But I also own an airplane. And about 5 years ago, I got my pilot's license at the Marion Airport. And I think you've heard enough of the pros and cons. I don't need to get into that, but I'd just give you some personal experience from being a pilot and owning an airplane. When I plan trips and going into bigger cities, I always look for the smaller airports. And when I land at an airport or something, for whatever reason, I plan for going out to eat or staying in a hotel or doing something like that. It's always within a pretty short radius of that airport. So being in Marion, just a personal experience. When you don't have a cross runway, which is part of the expansion plan is putting in a crosswind runway. Airplane my size has a crosswind component of about 20, 22 knots, and typically here in Iowa we get a lot of wind, right? And when you don't have that, or when you got a straight crosswind coming in, and I've had an experience in the past going out, went to lunch, came back, and took me 4 go-arounds, and finally on the 5th try I got in, and I appreciate Cole. Cole got on the radio and said he'd pick me up in Cedar Rapids if I couldn't get down, but I made it down the 5th time. So I just wanted to show my support for the airport and just kind of bring up it is a safety issue having a crosswind runway does make the airport much more desirable airport for out-of-towners to fly into when they do their flight planning. They don't have to worry so much if they come in and the wind has changed direction, or the wind is going to be a different direction than what they planned for a day or two before.
So your first name was Tyler?
Kyle.
Kyle, thank you. Kyle, it's first of all, any questions for Kyle from the council? No? Kyle, it's for you and all your aviation individuals out there. It is exciting, and we do appreciate you using it. It's nice to hear some of this feedback from you folks. For those of us that don't fly, it is a major component for you folks. So thank you for coming this evening and expressing your feelings. We appreciate that. I would ask that if anyone else is wanting to speak, please come forward and please be in line and ready to go. We would like to move quickly through these here, so I'd like to make sure that we get to hear from anybody. Yes, ma'am, you're next.
Yes, I am Wendy Kunkel. I live at 1840 Geode Street in Marion, and I've known Jan and her husband Perry probably for over 20 years. My husband took flight lessons out there, and I currently have a 19-year-old son who is working on his commercial license. And just to give you some background, when he was a freshman in high school, or he started high school, I told him, you have to start thinking about what you want to do with your life and what commitments do you want to make. And he had no idea. He knew he didn't want to be a lawyer, medical doctor, engineer, and so one day we took him out to the Cedar Rapids airport, and we were putting him on a plane to go on a missions trip. And I said, well, while you're on this missions trip, I know you're going to be thinking about other things. And I said, but, just think about what you might want to do. And he turned around and he looked at his father and I, and he's like, you know what? I am seriously thinking I would like to be a pilot. And I said, I know exactly where we can take you. When you get back, we are going to take you out to the Marion Airport, talk to Jan. And that's exactly what we did. And she referred us to Cole. She goes, Cole will be perfect for Derek, because at the time I think my son was 14. And Cole is a phenomenal man. What he does out there and all the things he's accomplished in his short years of life on this earth, he's really done a lot. And so Derek had a really great experience. He went up with Cole, loved it, and he's never looked back since. And right now, like I said, he's working on his commercial license. And can I tell you, I work at a small Christian school here. And because my son has gone into the aviation, it's aviation and pilots. My son wants to fly for an airline, and he'll do it because that's his motivation. And these kids, they just know now through my son and through the airport, it's attainable. I mean, how many people do you know that say, I'm a pilot, as a commercial pilot or as a private pilot for some company? I remember my dad, he's like, oh no, just make Derek go to school to be an engineer. Pilot's out of reach. And you know what? It's not. Marion Airport was very welcoming. They made it easy. They pretty much make it as affordable as you can get it. And I think that's pretty much all I want to say. And I know people, I recently met a young lady who, she came, I think she lives somewhere between here and Dubuque. She had heard about the Marion PNN charter, the flight school, and she came here, and I know she's taken several lessons through that. So it's not just Marion, and it's not just Cedar Rapids. It's outlying areas and smaller towns where these kids, because there is such a shortage on pilots, that we have this school, and you can't go wrong, and it will continue to grow, especially if you do widen the runways and allow instrument rating, because that's a downfall of not having the instrument rating technology for it. So, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Wendy. From the council, is there any questions for Wendy? No? Thank you. Cole, that one might have cost you a premium coffee. Next.
Council members, Tim Schaefer, 1775 Maple Crest Drive. I know I took a lot of your time up Tuesday. I just want to reaffirm that the MAC, as chair of the MAC, that we stand behind the ALP. The ALP, I feel, is long overdue. We all feel that it's long overdue, and it's something that should have been in place a long time ago. And now that you, the city and city council, has the opportunity to do this, I believe we need to move forward. One thing that Cole said about fly-ins and the breakfasts and the flights that they gave, he said we did 700 at Marion last year. Typically, it's around 50. I've been to a lot of fly-ins. We have all kinds of community support. When you go out there for the fly-in, you'll see nothing but a line, and you don't see that everywhere else. So the community in general is behind it, and I hope that you see fit to give your blessing to this.
Wonderful. From the council, are there any questions for Tim? No?
Thank you.
Thanks again, Tim.
Good evening, council members. My name is Nick Glue. I'm president of Marion Economic Development Corporation, and I'm also president of Medco Holding Company, LLC, which is the majority owner of land located immediately west and adjacent to the Marion Airport. So first, thank you for the time that's been invested by this council to understand really the history, the planning activities, the dollars that have spent out there, and also the development that has really already occurred and will continue to occur around the Marion Airport. For the past several years, our organization has worked to not only support high-quality development around the airport, but also to advocate for the airport itself. We were directly involved earlier last year in building relationships with the Department of Transportation and the DOT Commission to secure dollars for the runway improvements that we're working on designing right now that we hope to see happen here later in 2019. Passing this comprehensive plan amendment, as well as in future weeks, we know the next step is the zoning that would follow. Those two things have really been a requirement of that funding, which the DOT made known to this community nearly 18 months ago. So being here today shouldn't be a surprise. We have been a fully engaged stakeholder in this airport project as you all have worked to continue to navigate the adoption of the ALP, which is complete, working through the current land use plan amendment, which we're here tonight to talk about, anticipated zoning updates that will come in the future, and of course, future airport construction projects. So since 2015, we have realized more than $30 million of private development and investment adjacent to the airport in the Marion Enterprise Center. That's the name of the industrial park. You all know that, located to the west of the airport. Today, some of our highest valued properties in the city now sit next to the airport. With the adoption of the ALP, we've gone even a step further and have actually platted lots that align with that particular plan. So right now, you could go to our website. These are all public documents on marionenterprisecenter.org, and you can see the master development plan that we have adopted many years ago and continue to work through. This represents the lots that are sold. Most of those sold lots, or all of those sold lots, have physical improvements, manufacturing facilities that have located there. And then the thing that I want to highlight even more so is we've sought to be the best partners that we can be as the city has worked through this planning process to ensure that we're kind of smart about how we develop the ground that could be utilized for the cross runway per the adopted ALP. So with that, we've even gone as far as platted lots that respect that planning process and the plan that was adopted by the Marion City Council in the past. In fact, in this particular area, adjacent to a company that's called Electric Specialty Manufacturing, you'll notice that the angle of those lots, and if we zoom up here on the actual plat, the angle of these lots, the size of these lots, the setbacks of these buildings were designed to respect the ALP that was adopted. You'll even see a funky little notch here that was a very specific element of a runway at the time. So we've been very intentional to make sure as we develop adjacent to the airport that we do so within the plans that have been adopted by this body in past years. So as you know, the Marion Enterprise Center is a certified industrial park through the Iowa Economic Development Authority, and we're very proud to have that designation. All of the work into investing and making that park what it is today is designed to reduce risk and create a known, stable environment for the companies that have invested and will continue to invest millions of dollars into new facilities. All of the existing site plans, so the companies that are located out there, each project were developed around these known and expected conditions, including what's going on with the adjacent airport. So adopting this comprehensive plan amendment will continue to support that stable, known development environment for industry in the MEC. Now, over the past couple of weeks, as property owners, including ourselves, were notified about tonight's public hearing. Being kind of the one connected with many of those businesses out there, my phone rang. I heard from many of those different property owners who were really interested in understanding what tonight's decision ultimately would mean for their property and how future zoning may impact how they use their property. And while I understand that tonight's decision to approve an amendment to the comp plan doesn't really do anything but update our land use map with a new designation, we do understand that your action directing staff, which is an item following this particular conversation, regarding the zoning piece, that is of great interest with the owners that I've interacted with over the last couple of weeks. So just a little quick context. For two of the property owners that contacted me, they're located in areas that currently have I-2 zoning, just to the west of the airport. The existing I-2 zoning actually restricts building heights more so than any contemplated airport regulations or any of the zoning that's been drafted and considered to be bring forward in further weeks. It's actually the I-2 zoning that restricts heights more so. In fact, one of those property owners, Consumer Supply, has a grain elevator that at 125 feet would not be impacted. For two property owners located immediately adjacent to the airport, the existing transitional surfaces, that's a word I've even had to learn what it actually means, but just that slope away from the airport that tells you how high you can build buildings, those are anticipated to be recommended by staff to remain the same. So there would be no changes by turning our current guidelines into actual zoning code for the companies who reached out to me, for the ones that I talked with. Now, it is acknowledged that a small number of properties may have conflict with the anticipated zoning. However, as we move forward from today, I'm confident that in the weeks to come that we can collaboratively work to adopt zoning code that's right-sized for Marion and that's right-sized for an airport that will adequately serve this community well beyond the years that all of us will sit here in this chamber. So we've been planning and growing with this airport for several years, and to be quite frank, we're excited to finally have today's amendment to the comprehensive plan catch up with the rest of the development process and the development that's happened out there. So as a city council, again, we thank you for the time that you've taken to really be informed about what's going on out there and how we're working as a development community to make great things happen for the long-term health of our community. And I ask for your support in amending our comp plan tonight.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Glue. Is there any questions from the council for Mr. Glue? Seeing none. Thank you, sir. Okay, seeing no other individuals on this side of the, for this item, again, this is the public hearing regarding the amendment. I'll ask for those who are against or oppose this or would like additional information to come forward. I would like to again ask for the respect of those that are going to speak. If any items has been covered, to please refrain from reiterating it again. But please, let's move on into the folks against this item. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, members of the City Council. My name is Bill McCartan. I am an attorney with Bradley & Riley. We're at 2007 First Avenue, Southeast in Cedar Rapids. I'm here tonight on behalf of our client, Atlas LP Company, which owns land to the south of the current airport and also along the southern edge of the east-west runway. Our client's land is currently zoned in a way that permits commercial, residential, and retail uses. When they annexed to the city, they negotiated for a very flexible zoning classification. They would be deprived of that zoning classification by the proposed changes. So we're here in opposition to the proposed comprehensive plan amendment. We submitted extensive materials to the council, and I won't rehash all of those tonight. Instead, want to spend a little bit of time on a slightly different perspective on this. I know you heard Tuesday at the work session a lot about the challenge for the council to think big and dream for Marion, and I think there was also some talk, pretty extensive talk actually, about what Marion and what its citizens deserve. And I'd like to address that subject with my time tonight. I do agree it's your job to dream big for Marion. And if you look around Marion, you can see that the council has done a really wonderful job of visioning for the city. The downtown is transformed. The 6th and 7th Avenue projects completely changing the way the city looks. If you drive around Marion, you see all kinds of great changes have happened. But I will guarantee you that if you talk to most citizens of Marion, and I mean probably 99% plus of the citizens of Marion about their dreams and hopes for the city, they will not mention the Marion Airport. And if you talk about what the city of Marion deserves and what its citizens deserve, we agree that they deserve world-class city assets. And that means vibrant, thriving downtown core, recreational opportunities, parks, trails, skate parks, arts, public gathering spaces, well-maintained streets, wide sidewalks, and a walkable community. And the citizens of Marion could have a whole lot of that for $50 million, which is the real cost, at least, of this project. And what the citizens of Marion don't deserve is to have $50 million of their tax dollars spent on a project that is really just for the benefit of small plane hobbyists, wealthy jet owners who might land their planes at the airport in the future and keep their planes there, people that drop in from out of town to gas up, and Luxair, the private airport developer. That is not what the city of Marion and its citizens deserve. Nobody should ever forget that this project was born out of a transaction that put $1 million nearly into the pocket of Luxair on a risk-free basis. Now the request is that the council impose height. We've talked about height, but we haven't talked about density and use restrictions at all tonight on a huge swath of the city of Marion in the hope that the city could somehow fund that project. The stated project budget is $30 million. That was what was in the airport layout plan. Even though it's a 20-year project, inexplicably, for reasons I can't quite figure out, that project budget was not inflation adjusted. And if you inflation adjust that budget, just apply a 3% rate of inflation, you're now talking about a $40 million project. And that number does not include a real cost for land acquisitions, because the real cost of land acquisitions would add another $10 million to the project. If you look at the project budget and the amounts that are contemplated for land acquisitions, they are really unrealistically low. And the project, and even that number, which now you're up to about $50 million, doesn't include the cost of wetlands mitigation. And at each end of that east-west runway, you have wetlands that have to be mitigated. There has been, and we've studied this issue for 3+ years, we've never seen a scintilla of paper reflecting an analysis of the wetlands and how you would go, whether they could be mitigated and how you would mitigate them. Because you can't have wetlands at the end of a runway. Wetlands attract birds. Birds are not a good partner for the end of a runway. So if you add the cost to the and I guess I want to mention, at the east end of the proposed runway is a very unique, what's called a hanging bog. It's a very large ecologically sensitive wetland. It's very unclear whether that could be moved or mitigated. There's been no study of that. Clearly very expensive. And the number doesn't include the cost of moving or burying the Grantwood Trail. The concept, to extend the runway south, the concept is to put the Grantwood Trail underground, underneath a runway, a taxiway, and the clear areas, the clear zones on either side of the runway. A massive tunnel. Just the tunnel that goes under Highway 13 for the trail costs nearly $1 million. That's just a simple box culvert. This is far more than a simple box culvert. It's got to be much longer. Would it have to be ventilated, lit? How would it be secure? Completely unstudied, really, this question. And yet you're being asked to impose a huge circle. You saw the circle of property use, density, and height restrictions. And the detail on that, of course, is not yet available. But we'll see it as soon as you take this step. Then we'd get to find out what's behind door number 3. So we're now up well over $50 million, and there will never be money from the federal government for this airport. As I said, I've been at this 3.5 years, and I've heard various times someone intimate, well, you know, things could change. You never know. The truth is we do know. This airport is within 20 miles of the Eastern Iowa Airport. It is therefore ineligible for federal funding. It is within 6 miles of a landfill. It is therefore ineligible for federal funding. It does not meet a host of required FAA standards, and even the ALP doesn't even try to meet those design standards. It is ineligible for federal funding for that reason. What about the state? Well, the state has provided money to date strictly for safety improvements at the existing airport. It has never indicated any willingness to fund an expansion of the Marion Airport. And in fact, when Luxair went to the IDOT for a letter of support for the airport expansion, they were turned down. And then the state said specifically, the IDOT staffer said the following: I am unable to provide a letter of support indicating likelihood of substantial funding for future projects. There would be no reason to believe that there will be state funding for the expansion of the Marion Airport. There is a very adequate airport less than 20 miles away. And I can say I have personally spoken with IDOT staff, and they've confirmed that that's their point of view. So that leaves the Marion taxpayer to pay for all this. The Marion debt load has already gone in the last 5 years from $44 million to $64 million, almost a 50% increase in the debt load in just 5 years. So is it realistic to think that the Marion taxpayers are going to accept spending more than $50 million over the next 20 years on a totally unnecessary project, on the things rather than on the things I mentioned at the beginning of my remarks? Should taxpayers give up $50 million of parks, trails, downtown improvements, street maintenance, or should they pay higher taxes for the benefit of a few light plane hobbyists, wealthy private jet owners, people dropping in to fill up on gas, and Luxair, the private airport developer? They shouldn't, and it's our belief that they won't. The question is, when it turns out in 10 or 15 or 20 years that we saw the article from 1993 that this was an objective then to get this funded. So it hasn't happened over the last, 26 years? When we find out in another 10 or 15 or 20 years that this couldn't be funded, wasn't realistic financially, who's going to make it up to all the landowners who have had their development stunted and who've lost value in their property because this set of zoning restrictions, and the ALP was adopted, the comprehensive plan was amended, and then zoning restrictions were put in place, all in service of a project that clearly can never happen. There was a claim at the council work session on Tuesday by a Luxair representative that you'd have to do the same, you'd have to draw the same circle even if you don't expand the airport, and that's just categorically not true. If you don't expand the airport, all you need for zoning is what looks basically like a snowman, and it's nowhere near as large. It's a fraction of the size, because the east-west runway creates huge eastward and westward extension of that circle. The north-south extension of the runway creates a very substantial north-south extension of the runway, and then the circles all overlap to form what you have seen on the screen. That would be totally unnecessary based on the size of the current airport. For 3+ years now, we've been trying to get someone to use some common sense and look at what this project costs, look at all the unanswered questions and say, are we going to essentially put the cart in front of the horse, or should we find out about wetlands? Should we find out about financing? Should we find out about the trail? Get the questions answered? Or should we just impose a bunch of land use restrictions, stifle development, and wait and see what happens in 10 or 15 years? We think that this is a very misguided plan and it needs to be voted down. We ask you to do that tonight, and I do appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mr. McCartan. We appreciate that. Any questions from the council? Mr. McCartan? Seeing none, thank you. We appreciate that. Anyone else would like to speak before the council in these particular items? And once again, I'm going to ask everyone to please come forward so that we're ready to go to make the transition, please. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Hi, my name is Amber Jordan. I'm speaking for my husband that could not be here tonight because...
Amber, I'm sorry, Amber?
Yep, Amber.
Yep, we need your
and
address,
I'm from
please.
1493 Martin Creek Road, and I'm speaking on behalf of my husband tonight that could not be here because, as you guys all know, it has been raining, and today is about the only day it barely rained, and we can actually get something done on our farm. So to kind of tell you more about ourselves, we farm roughly 2.5 miles from the current airport. We have cohabitated with the current airport. We actually like having the current airport there, as my father is actually a pilot, and we've actually flown with him in and out of the airport before. Why we are against this land use plan is because no one can give us a answer on how our farm is going to be restricted, and you can tell how young I am. We want to grow our business for the future and for our children. We are going to build higher, like grain bins and legs. A leg would elevate the grain to fill the grain bins, as well as someday we would like to start an ag tourism on our farm. And talking about the restrictions on how many people can congregate at a facility, that would restrict our use on our plan to potentially do something like that. We also feel that Marion is outreaching on their zoning because of how unfeasible this ALP plan is. I'm not very good at this, I'm sorry. We also feel that this negatively impacts our neighbors' property values and selects a select few that would benefit from it. And then I just urge you to vote no for this land use plan because we just have a lot of unknown in our business, and no one can give us a straightforward answer even though you have a plan to change it.
Very good. Any questions for Amber from the council? Seeing none, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming.
Good evening. My name is Lori Copper. I live at 2145 Merrick Lane in Marion, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and the L&J Jordan Farm Corporation. My brother farms with Spencer, who was not able to be here this evening because they're out in the fields. A couple of things that wanted to just bring to your attention was, I know the bog was mentioned and about the mitigation of that. It is the only known bog in the state of Iowa, and there are very few of them in the country. So it's going to be very difficult in order to mitigate that. And I don't know if you know, but when I was a child, there was a prehistoric bison found in that bog, the whole entire skeleton. And University of Iowa students came out and dug that bison up. And at the time, the farm was owned by Arlene and Arlene Hughes, and they donated the bison to the University of Iowa. And that's something that is just cannot be replaced. I don't know if many of you read the Cedar Rapids Gazette, but a few weeks ago there was an article in there about my family and about our farm, and it showed some interesting pictures from the top of our grain bin that's existing. And I know Amber had mentioned about wanting to increase that to be able to increase our farm business. Some people have asked, well, why didn't you do it before this came up? Well, we have to be cognizant of money, and crop prices have not been really good just here in the last couple of years, so we're doing it diligently. It is very difficult living in Lynn County and having a council of citizens from Marion that are making decisions for our farm and our properties moving forward when really we have no recourse. We can come here and talk to you, but we are not citizens of Marion. We don't vote for you. We don't have a voice. And so all of us in Lynn County, we don't have a voice. We went to our Lynn County supervisors and asked them about this. And they were told their hands are tied too, because there's a state law now that says that cities take precedence over counties. So that you've kind of put us in a position where we don't have a voice. So I do appreciate you at least listening this evening. I know it was mentioned earlier about the impact to owners around airports. Well, the Cedar Rapids Airport, I don't know if you know, owns 300 acres surrounding their airport. And they bought that to help to mitigate the land values and the properties of those people around the airport so that they don't have to take the impacts of the lesser values that will happen. And our family has been trying to get some answers about the zoning. That's the next step, and it sounds like it's coming quickly. And the Medco gentleman talked this evening about how he's been talking with people, with your staff and things, and stuff has already been determined when we've been asking questions and we haven't been able to get answers. So that's a big concern for us, that these decisions are already being made and you won't share them with us. And I just want you to remember that you're elected officials. And I believe, I've been an elected official myself, and I believe that you have to do your due diligence. And there's a lot of things that have been brought up this evening by the gentleman from the Riley about the impacts, about the costs. Is the project feasible because of the Cedar Rapids Airport being so close? About the wetlands, the trails, how it's going to impact all of those landowners around it and those business owners. So I would urge you to vote no to the Marion Airport Comprehensive Plan Amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Before you step away, are there any questions for Lori from the council? Seeing none, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Steve Coffin. I live at 1210 Marion Airport Road. At that property, I own roughly about 8 acres. That's where I live. It's wooded, it's quiet, it's great. My family also owns, my wife and her, they own 132 acres on 1461 Sechrist Road. Right now, that is all agriculture. I'm here, I appreciate all the enthusiasts of the aircraft enthusiasts. I do appreciate all those comments. Those are great things. Flying is great, but it's not just about the airport and flying. It's about making the airport bigger. You know, at one point I believed it was just they were going to repave, that they were going to make the runway a little smoother, a little nicer. But I don't know if anyone recognizes this, but it's getting changed to a C-class airport. And if you don't know what the C-class is, I'll do my best to explain it to you. It allows jets. Basically, it goes from flying a turboplane, teaching someone how to fly, maybe a twin turboprop, being able to fly into a meeting, to a jet engine. I did appreciate someone talking about decimals, and I do work in the aviation currently. I sell airplane products, and a jet engine produces, the normal jet engine produces about 160 decibels. Just look it up on your Google. It'll tell you. So I living in a nice, peaceful, quiet area, you're going to create this new classification of airport, what you believe is the better part for Marion. You know, Marion's asking for this. I don't believe the enthusiasts are asking for the jet engines. I think they're just asking for a nice, clean runway, maybe a little longer. But by what you're doing is you're changing the classification to allow a jet to land in the airport, at this particular airport. Now, I was at the last community get-together, and we talked about a lot of things, and I won't reiterate a lot, just because it's been a long night. I've heard a lot of stuff. But as you know, the city limit is right there. CID, Cedar Rapids Airport, is way out. There's nothing out there. I mean, you might get a Casey's or gas station, but you guys have Metco and all these properties right there. You're landlocking yourself. You're wasting my money because you really can't go anywhere. You're restricted by Secrest. You're restricted by 13. You're restricted by 151. The only place you can go is to the east, towards my house. So are you willing to like what Lori said? Are you going to come out and you're going to buy my land so you can be like the Cedar Rapids Airport? Well, what I heard from the attorney is that you don't have the money to do it anyways. It seems like I'm trying to be a little confrontational. I don't mean to be that way. I'm just trying to make sure that you understand that this is our livelihood. 132 acres. This is where I live. And you're talking about flying jets over my house. I live at Marion Airport Road. And the runway flies right over my house at 160 decibels. Yeah, the gentleman did say there's a new jet. Mitsubishi makes it. It's a quiet jet. But the typical jets on a CRJ, which look just like this, if you can see it, have 160 decibels. That's what you guys are going to make this classification to. Now, I'm encouraged by the people that want to fly in and the breakfasts and such. And I think the airport does need a new runway, and it does need some improvements, but it doesn't need to have this classification to the level you're looking to do. And I think if you did a vote within the city of Marion whether we should go forward with this, it would be turned down. That's what you have to do for the schools. You're talking $50 million is what I'm hearing now. So, you know, there's a 1% that does want this upgrade, but the other 99 don't. I took a picture of you guys before I came up here to speak because you're going to make a decision today. And I want you to think about it before you make the decision. The needs of the many or the needs of the few. Again, you could rechange your AOP plan or they keep saying ALP, Airport Layout Plan, which is a high fancy word for just a plan. You can change that plan and not ruin the bog and not ruin the trail. The things that you really haven't no one's investigated. I won't reiterate the funding piece. Since I'm in aviation, I do understand that the FAA will not fund you anything. Every red penny that goes to that airport will be funded by the taxpayers of Marion. The FAA will never pay you a penny, nor will the state. So it's a dead-end project. So to grow it, to say, oh, we're going to do this AOP in 2019, and in 5 years we're going to do something else, it can't get any bigger than it already is. Because you're landlocked by 13 Sechrist and 151. You have no funding. And I don't think the community really wants it. Except for the enthusiasts, which I do appreciate them because it supports my livelihood. Reading through here, I moved to Marion 12 years ago, and I love the city. It's a great place. But sometimes I think we put our efforts into stuff that you really haven't thought through yet. I won't bring them up. I know you probably think in the back of your head, some people say the roundabouts were a bad idea. Some people say the brick alley that runs behind 7th Avenue with all the art stuff we're supposed to have concerts back there or something. I don't even know if you're aware of that. But those are some of the things we put money at, and they were a waste of money at this point. I don't know. It's just an opinion. Maybe add a library when we're all going to books like this and books you rent off a line. But I really think, you need to consider your decision tonight. Maybe just limit to continue the restriction and not move to a C1 airport. Because you're going to ruin my farm. You're going to ruin my house. You're going to depreciate my land. Your decision's going to do a lot to me tonight. 132 acres and 10 acres. And again, you're really restricted. Think about moving it a little ways out of town. We're just improving the airport so the enthusiasts can continue to use it as a turboprops and propeller props. But please do not go to a C1 classification. That's all I have.
Thank you, Steve. Any other questions for Steve from the council? Seeing none, thank you. We appreciate you coming.
Hello, my name is Jeff Coberly. I got a lot of these people to talk about already. I'll make mine quick tonight. We own a lot of that wetland that they're talking about, and nobody's approached us about anything. I missed the last meeting, back to baling hay, but need to speak. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered before you guys vote yes. A lot of us that are being affected by it, we really need to be brought into this a little deeper, what it's going to do to our properties. And, there is a lot of wildlife birds on our property because it is wetland. I don't know if you guys are going to expect me to take care of this stuff or what, but a lot of questions need to be answered before you continue on with this stuff. And so I'd like to have you say, not really no or yes. I'm just sitting on the fence with it, but I'd like to have a lot more answers before you guys say we're proceeding forward. There's just too many questions that have to be answered yet. And nobody's approached us personally because we're property owners right there. I don't know what to say. I'd like to have a little more insight of what's going on. So that's about all I got to say. Quickest one of the night, right?
We appreciate you coming, Jeff. Is there any questions for Jeff from the council? Seeing none, thank you very much. Right. We appreciate it.
My name's Lisa Coffin. I live at 1210 Marion Airport Road, and my family owns the 132-acre farm on Sechrist Road. And the proposed new runway, the approach zone, would fly right over the exact location where I would like to build a house in the future. So personally for me, obviously that is not ideal, and there are a lot of points that have been made tonight that I especially appreciate the comments made by the gentleman from Bradley and Riley, so I won't go into things that have already been said at your request, but I just wanted to make it known that I am definitely not for this airport expansion.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions from the council before Lisa Goes back to our seat. Thank you, Lisa. And again, just to remind everyone, this is the Marion Comprehensive Plan establishing the airport overlay. This has nothing to do with any zoning at this point. Good evening. Your name and address, please.
My name is Cindy Kettlecamp, and I live at 1310 Seacrest Road. We have an acreage there. My daughter lives on Hinman Road. They have an acreage there. We have a dairy farm on Martin Creek Road, 120 acres. And then we also have an 80-acre over there, too, and that is my phone, and I thought I turned it off. I'm really sorry. I was just going to ignore it and let it go by. You know, who's got that phone, you know? Oh, shoot. So somebody can stomp on my purse or it will go off. One of the things that I see is Marion does a lot of TIFing. And that's pretty much normal in communities right now. You TIF to get economic development. But when you're TIFing and when you're, we're seeing a lot of picking of winners and losers, whether it's on a federal level, a state level, or a local level like Marion. We're picking winners and losers. When we choose to put all of our money into an airport project at the expense of farmers that have already been there, that have already made an investment in their land, in their homes, in their communities, we are really saying we don't value you. We value this other group more. And I think that's wrong too. And I think we have to be careful of that. I also have a business here in town. I'll put a plug in for the Kettle House Bakery. You know, there are already a lot of small business people present in that rural area. And they are looking, just like the people in town are, for their futures and their children's futures and what their farm's going to become. Some of them are multi-generational. And the airport is fairly new in that area if you look at that area's lifetime. If you go back to the 1800s and then 1900s, some of those farmers in that farmland have been there that long. And yet Marion is looking at making changes to their land use plan that will severely impact those multi-generational farms and the livings that are made there. And those are very much important too. They've already made investments in land and equipment, their lifestyle, everything. We would not appreciate if someone came and wanted to majorly change 200 acres of our community where we live here. There would be an uprising. But because there are fewer people out in the country, sometimes it's easier to steamroller them and to come up with fancy things, fancy words and fancy plans, and not really share them and not get that involvement. I think you've heard that some people may not be opposed, but they don't have the answers. Some people are definitely opposed because they can see the handwriting on the wall, and they can see how that would impact them. We milk cows. We milk 160, and already we get flybys over our 90-foot silo. And that can seriously impact how our cows give milk, believe it or not. You get the loud jets, you stress out the cows, they're not going to give the milk. We're going to suffer economically. Other people mentioned, the landlocked, the trail, all of those things. We already spent money on those things. And why do you want to just rip them up and do a different project? I think we really have to look at an even bigger picture of what we want, how we want to be fair to all of the citizens, whether they are rural or town or hobbyists or other businesses. Those are all new businesses. Your rural businesses have been there a long, long time. And I think they need to be looked at and given some consideration. Okay, any questions?
Any questions from the council for Cindy?
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi there, how are you?
Good, thank you.
My name's Greg Churchill, and I'm a landowner in what I now find out to be the affected area. And I guess I'd echo bog owners'
Could
comments.
we get your address, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry, 1700 Cottage Grove Parkway.
Thank you.
So I'm just south of the proposed area. The new concentric circles encroach in our area. And I too have a plan with my land. I own 1,100 acres, fairly sizable amount of land. We have some wet areas that are underdeveloped and aren't agriculturally rich. So our intent was to create what we thought, in keeping with the conservation theme, a wetland. And it was going to be our investment to go towards that, and as we now find out, that's going to be restricted because of the bird issue and the southbound runway. So I guess first my comment would be transparency and letting those affected be aware of what the changes are and what that could mean to our individual plans would be hugely important. And frankly, I haven't gotten that detail to date, and I would appreciate it as we look forward going downstream. The second comment I would make is just, benchmarking is always a good thing to do. And I always drive up 151. I owned a boat up in Dubuque for a considerable period of time, and I drive by the Monticello Airport all the time. Highly developed airport, got all the length and got all the width that you'd ever want, and I haven't seen yet much development around that. So these promises of development, I think, need to be bounced off other examples in our respective areas to ensure that long-term that development does in fact occur. And in Monticello, I would contend it has not, just by a near drive-by of 151. So keep that in mind as you're going forward. The last item I would advocate for is, although there has been a lot of talk relative to the enthusiasm for general aviationists in the area, if you look on a national level, general aviation is way, way down and declining. The cost to fly an airplane is expensive, and individuals aren't jumping into it like they did years ago. And there was a huge push by the aviation industry to try to re-stimulate it, but it hasn't been paying off in dividends. And you can see that in aircraft sales and all the other major metrics that the general aviation market looks. So you could be betting on a declining industry, and I would caution you to do that. So take a hard look, not at local enthusiasm, but national enthusiasm, because it's on the decline. And I, too, am one of those guys that comes from the big avionics company here in town, so I think I have some familiarity with the markets as well. Those are my comments. Good luck with your decisions, and thanks for the time.
Thank you. Before you leave, Greg, are there any questions for Greg from the council? None. Thank you. Okay, sir. I'm going to ask again, if there are any people that would like to come forward, please be standing and ready to go for us, please. Thank you.
I'm Brad Bennett, and I live at 2280 Timber Creek Drive, Marion, Iowa, and we own land.
Welcome, Brad.
Welcome. And we own land out there on Seacrest and Merrick Lane, and that's going to be right where your approach is, coming over there. I fly all the time commercially. They say it's not noisy, but I put on my Bose headphones all the time. And we're definitely against this. If we ever wanted to move and build a house out there, now we're limited. And it's affecting our property greatly. So.
Okay, great. Any questions for Brad? No? Thank you, Brad. We appreciate you coming.
Thanks.
Anyone else that would like to speak to the council? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. It's officially closed. At this particular time, we are going to move on. We are up to, under Community Development, letter F. This will be item number 5, Mr. Brandt.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to, well, let me turn my mic on. Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve resolution number 27752, approving an amendment to the Marion Comprehensive Plan establishing airport and airport overlay designations.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 27752, approving an amendment of the Marion Comprehensive Plan establishing airport and airport overlay designations. Eyes are getting kind of tired. Discussion.
Yes.
We'll start with you, Mr. Jensen.
Be glad to start it. I've been on the city council for a year and a half, and this is definitely the issue that we have gotten the most feedback on. Definitely the single issue that I have spent a lot more of my time on thinking about what my decision would be. And there are times I've been on both sides of the fence for a lot of very good reasons.
One, I am a strong believer in long-range planning. The ALP does that for the city. That is a document that is giving a long-range plan for the airport. That said, it comes with a certain number of restrictions for the land use around it and then the following up zoning. But for me, what it came down to is simply that the city is now putting together a 5-year capital improvement plan. We could not even afford everything that was in that 5-year capital improvement plan this last year. It had to be significantly cut back. And what we did approve, I'm not sure we're going to be able to really get done in the next 5 years. So if I were to put together a capital improvement plan for the next 15 to 20 years, what would be on that? My plan would certainly have, I know there's going to be an absolute need for more parks, improved sewer, replacement of streets, and a lot of other items that I think simply from a capital improvement standpoint and where the city should spend their money and where the citizens want us to spend their money, I believe the airport would not be on my priority list ahead of those other items I mentioned. I am completely in favor of expanding and widening the current runway. So I do believe expanding and improving that to 60 foot wide, adding the lighting is certainly a safety aspect that is important and is needed. Once I go beyond that, I might be able to be looking at in the next few years lengthening that runway to maybe 4,000. But anything beyond that, I'm going to have a difficult time supporting and approving in the next 5 years. And this is a 20-year plan. So we currently have $3.1 million in our capital improvements plan for that runway expansion and widening in 2019-20. So I am in support of that. There are $6.1 million in the 5-year capital improvements plan. When we approved that, that was at a time where I was not aware of the ALP, the airport layout plan, was not really up to speed on what that encompassed. So I'm guessing what I just said is not going to make everybody happy. Probably both sides are not happy with not getting everything they want, but I think, in my opinion, that's a fair compromise on what I think is needed in the short term and also in the long term for this city.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen. Ms. Cadelia.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, I would like to thank everyone who's written to us, who's here tonight. It's obviously a long night, and irrespective of which side you're on, a lot of thought and care and passion and energy has gone into it, and it helps us inform our decisions, and so I appreciate that participation. I do want to say that I'm in full support of the Marion Airport because it is a city asset. We've invested money into it. I certainly don't want to not put in the improvements that we've talked about going forward, but I don't think that we need to immediately approve a plan that's so far out with so much in it until I think it's realistic that we can get to those pieces. So I, like Councilman Jensen, I support improving existing assets like the runway. I went out and I did a tour, and I can't even imagine landing a plane on the skinny strip. So just improving that, the lights, tonight instrument tech improvements came up. I'm curious about that. Signage, I want to protect the investment that we have. In terms of expanding it, I'm not in favor of the east-west at this time. What I would like to do is break this ALP into some phases so that we can deal in smaller chunks in lesser time frames and digest that and see what we can accomplish before we bite off more, so to speak, and look at the funding and continue to revisit it, because we have a lot of, as Steve referenced, a lot of other projects that I think touch many more citizens on a daily basis. The roads, the sewers, the library, the Y, parks, trails, et cetera. So on the next two votes, I don't know where it would be appropriate, but I would be in support of doing the phases, so that phase 1 would include the improvements that I mentioned, the safety improvements. And I would also like to request, before we do anything further than that, that we have some kind of economic development study, an outside source to look at what an airport built out to the degree that the current ALP that's approved would bring in, so that we can gauge if that investment, or what could come into Marion, is worth the investment that we would put in. And I don't believe we have the data to approve this massive plan right now with the east-west and the north-south. So those are my thoughts on it. And unless we amend, and I don't know, I guess I'll wait to hear what everyone else says, but we can approve what's on here, or at least we can approve number 5, what's in front of us, with an amendment, and still get funding and still get things done. It's not an all or nothing, and so I believe a compromise is in order, and that's what I would support.
Thank you, Ms. Scadelia. Any other comments from the council? Mr. Draper.
I agree with Mr. Jensen. I'm in favor of the north-south being improved, so it's more usable and safer. I have a conflict on the east-west, so I'm not going to be able to vote on that. But the land, to me, that the east-west is taking is not of great value. My attorney said I couldn't discuss it. I just can't vote on it. So the east-west, to me, eventually is something we're going to need, and you're basically passing that need for someday. The simple thing would be, to me, would be to break them in two and vote on the north-south for approval, and bring the east-west back at some other date. I think we have a need for it. It just, the money isn't there.
Any other comments?
Sure. So
please go ahead.
Recognizing, following the instructions that everybody was given, that I don't want to repeat, right, all of the things that my folks have said up here. A couple of things, though. I think it's important, just as Renee had highlighted, it's been really helpful to have the voices present tonight, and the folks that have sent emails in. You've provided some insights that, to be frankly honest, I hadn't thought of, so I really do appreciate that. And I think the second piece that would be really helpful to, and I can't remember, something, just sort of chunk it out, right? So the sense about how do we continue to fulfill what we said we were going to fulfill in the short term, and put a little more time and thought into what the long term would look like. So that's where I am. I'm in that camp.
Yeah. Mr. Brandt?
Yeah. So I was on council in 17 when the ALP was approved, and in my mind, I see it as the long-term plan. I don't think anybody up here is in any thinks that in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years we're going to spend the money on doing an east-west runway. Right? I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. I don't think anybody up here would spend the money on it either. And I agree that we all are on the same page where get the improvements to the north-south done that we've already approved. I think the ALP needs to stay the way it is, and I think it's a great long-term plan that we have approved already. And I think when we come to the zoning and the folks do have issues with things, I think that we will definitely discuss that with them and I would hope everything, we could work everything out with the folks that have the land around there. But again, that's coming up as far as zoning, but the whole expansion of the airport past what it's at right now, I don't foresee that anytime soon, and I don't foresee us ever spending any money on it in the near future. But I still think we need to have the ALP in place so that we protect that land out there in case it ever is needed. It could be 50 years from now before we need an east-west runway. We don't know that yet, but we still need to have that plan in place to protect it. That's my opinion on it.
Very good. I'll throw my couple cents in on this. First of all, I want to thank everybody. It's been a very long evening on both the pros and cons against this. I was on council in 2016 when the discussions were coming about and the ALP was actually being developed and put into place. One question I have for you, Tom, Mr. Treharn, is this evening's vote is, again, reiterating, as I kept trying to bring forward, is we're talking about expanding the comprehensive plan of the city, bringing in the airport, which is now owned by the city. Zoning will be a whole nother conversation down the road and how that impacts and what we're looking for there. We're basically reaching out, grabbing the airport, bringing it into the overall comprehensive plan. A lot of these things will still come before council. Any spending, correct me if I'm wrong on any of these details. Am I on track with those? Okay, very good. Thank you. I as well, I take a look at this and say, yeah, well, we own the airport. We've got to do the municipal due diligence of having that comprehensive plan as part of the city. As far as the build out of it, I as well too. I think this is another Tower Terrace project. Tower Terrace isn't even going to connect until 2040, folks. Our generations will probably never see the full build out of this airport unless there's some serious funding that's going to come back. I appreciate everybody's items of saying, yes, we have a need, we have a need, we have a need. But with that comes a huge ticket item with that. Not one of my emails brought to me a solution to the problem. Nobody ever, they said, we need it, we need it, we need it, but nobody ever talked about how we're going to fund it. So I as well too, I like the idea of having the vision, but it will not come, that is down the road. This is just multiple steps the city must take to take a look at embracing the comprehensive plan. Then we go back to the zoning, and that's another discussion. So as we look at this evening, these are the things that we're taking a look. I as well would like to see the ALP taken out and pulled back in as phases. We can amend that. Correct me if I'm wrong again. That can be amended later at a different time. Is that correct? Or if we feel that there is a conflict here of that particular item, because I as well, I want to get that north-south runway taken care of. We need to do that. That's a safety issue. If somebody had a horrific accident, that would be a terrible deal for everybody. Human life as well as liability to the city. So those are issues that I as well support. The east-west, that's down the road. As this council now is dealing with previous council's decisions, that will be another council that will make some of those decisions. So where do we fit that in if this council so desires to make baby steps of that actual ALP? If we wanted to amend that, does that change the overall comprehensive plan totally?
Well, I think what you'd want to do is to just reflect the north-south runway in the comprehensive plan amendment. And then I think some direction of the ALP back to the committee for review would probably be pertinent. And then from the motion perspective, I think you'd want to get a motion directing staff to proceed with zoning the north-south runway. And I would also defer to legal and the city manager as well on those comments, and as I speak those to the council. But that would seem
sure. I would entertain that. I think we have some questions up here from a council before we move any further here as to what the parameters are there. We need some clarification, please.
I guess to address the idea of amending the scope of what's been presented in the council packet tonight. You've seen the map for the anticipated affected properties for the full ALP build out. So you've kind of seen the dueling ellipses and the areas that would be covered with that. If you're contemplating going back and saying, let's see what that looks like with just the north-south runway in there, then my recommendation would be to table tonight to give us as staff time to come back to you with that map so that you have a better understanding of how much of the scope it really changes, so that you could really see that. To me, that's a fairly significant alteration. It's not as though you're taking it and moving it 15 feet here or 20 feet there. You're talking about a pretty significant change to the scope of the land use map amendment. And I guess I wouldn't feel comfortable wanting to move forward with an amendment of that scale tonight without being able to provide the council with more information on what does that really do to that affected circle.
Thank you, Lon. Do we have any input from legal?
I would agree with that statement. I think that if you're going to ask for such a large amendment, then I think your best course would be to table it, because you're not just making a minor change, you're not making a wording change, you're asking for a pretty significant change, which could also potentially lead to some differing opinions among the people who are here tonight that you may be interested in hearing from over the next 2 weeks if they were to bring that back at the next meeting. The other thing is I think that would give some additional time for some of the people who have some unanswered questions to go to the city and get those answered as well, which may also give you some additional feedback. This is not an insignificant change, and so I assume that you guys would all be interested in seeing that before you vote on it.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and that brings that back up to the council here. Just for the individuals in the public this evening, I just do want to reiterate, I do know that there's been several comments that have been brought forward that these are quick decisions. They're sometimes not thought through, and let me be the first to assure you, these have been worked very, very hard by your sitting council members here for those city residents here. So I just want you to know that this is not something that's lightly, and it's been addressed very, very deeply. So with that, I will ask the council one more time if there's any additional comments, questions, or if anybody would like to address anything. Mr. Jensen.
Yeah, I guess when we talk about, excuse me, I had turned that off, sorry. When we talk about restricting this to the north-south runway, I think we need to talk about what length of that runway we are talking about. So the current length is what, 3,750? Okay. So that's the current length. And I know in the ALP, it refers to possible north-south runway lengths of 4,000 and 5,000. And at 4,000, the airport changes its status from a basic service airport to a general service airport. So if we talk about, again, as I talked earlier, I could certainly see some benefit maybe of having that go to 4,000 feet, but I'd like some input as to if we talk about that going to 4,000 feet and a different designation for the airport, what does that really mean? What does that add to the benefit of the airport? So can somebody provide us with that input?
I think I'd want to review the ALP before I would provide that information back. I'd have to do a little research and
Okay.
digging on it. Yeah.
I think that's an aspect when we talk about the north-south runway. I think everybody up here seems to be in agreement to widen the existing one and add the lighting. But if we're talking about revising the ALP, are we really, that really brings in then what is going to be the recommended length beyond that, if any? So,
I'd like to table the issue entirely until our next later meeting, after everyone else has had an opportunity to really study the issue and our mayor's here.
Okay. I appreciate that. If he's abstaining, can we take the motion from him, or does it need to be another council member?
That's actually not something I've ever had come up before. So I think to be on the safe side, we should probably have somebody else do so, since Paul is going to abstain from the vote, the final vote.
Thank you, and I appreciate that.
I'll go ahead and I'll make that motion to table, where are we at here? To table resolution number 27752.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to table resolution number 27752, approving an amendment to the Marion Comprehensive Plan establishing airport and airport overlay designations. Any additional discussion on the tabling of the item. Mr. Brandt?
So explain to me why you moving to table it. You want the staff to look at doing the overlay of just a north-south runway and taking the east-west out of the overlay?
Yes.
Yes,
I think everybody with
on the airport
exception of
layout
you,
plan.
is in that camp.
So everyone's thinking that the ALP, the east-west, should be taken out of the ALP also?
The
Right.
feasibility of the airport layout plan.
I would entertain it in phases, but today, I don't, other than the people who have land there that are invested in the airport or pilots, the average citizen doesn't want their tax. I've asked people in the city, and they don't want, are my taxes going to go up when they hear the ticket item? So I'm not in favor of blanketing restrictions on people today for something that might not happen for 20 years or ever. I would rather address the north-south that I think I don't know if it's everyone, but certainly would benefit the airport, would protect our investment, would make things safer. It's a dollar sum that's palatable, and then I would put east-west for a later phase so that this council or a future council can make that decision at that time, and they're not hamstrung by what a previous council did based on the conditions during that year, whatever projects were going on.
I guess my comment to that would be that I understand where you're coming from as far as the dollar amount for it, but again, I don't foresee anyone in the near future spending the money on it and raising taxes or whatnot, because it's not needed now.
Right, but then you're restricting people that own land out there. Like, it's not just about the money, it's about putting a big restriction on a bigger area today for something that might not happen for decades or ever, just to hold it.
Now, people need to understand that even if we do what we're talking about, that there are going to be some zoning restrictions. Is that correct, Tom?
Absolutely.
So a lot of the zoning restrictions we're talking about may not affect as many people. It's still going to affect a lot of land around there.
Yep.
And I think that's still appropriate because we have an airport that those zoning restrictions and changes need to occur. So that's still, a lot of that is still going to come.
I agree.
So a lot of the people that are here tonight still may not be happy in the future when we get to that zoning phase. I understand that. But as we talk about what we need today and what I believe the city's areas of investment should be over the next 20 to 25 years beyond the north-south runway, that is not in my 20 to 25-year plan at this point in time. You present me with a lot of different investment options for the city. You tell me how much our need is going to be for parks. You tell me how much our need is going to be for sewer replacement, street replacement. You give me all those numbers, I'll prioritize them. But I'll tell you right now where my priorities are going to lie and where I believe the majority of the citizens' interest will lie. So that's why I'm saying,
Sure.
that
I don't
if
disagree
we want to
with you
vote
at
on
all
this
on
tonight,
that.
we can vote. But, I think tabling it gives it
I just want to.
some momentum.
I'm just trying to get the feel of what everyone else is
Yeah.
thinking. Because okay, that's fine. Thank you. Just want to clarify.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so at this time, we have a motion and a second to approve tabling Resolution 27752. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. We have one abstention. Thank you. Correct? Yes. At this time, then, I'm going to ask Tom. Tom, do we need to make any alterations then to the next item, or would you like us to proceed with that?
Should be tabled.
Yeah, that can't go.
It can be tabled as well. I mean, we have our time proceeding without
Right.
an approved land use.
Very good. Okay, so we'll go to Ms. Gedalia. You are scheduled for that one, if you would
Sure.
oblige me.
Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion to table it's not a resolution, but the direction to staff that would have them proceed with zoning the Marion Municipal Airport consistent with the 2017 airport layout plan until we bring back Resolution 27752 for the comp plan.
Second.
It has been, a motion has been made and seconded to table the motion of directing staff to proceed with zoning of the Marion Municipal Airport consistent with the 2017 airport layout plan until a resolution of 27752 comes to completion. Any further discussion on the tabling? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Ms. Atkins.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve motion directing staff to proceed with citywide rezoning based on the September 2018 adopted zoning districts.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the motion of directing staff to proceed with a citywide rezoning based on the September 2018 adopted zoning districts. Discussion.
Can you just, would you mind describing what this is? Because it sounds like what we've been talking about, but it's totally not. And we also have a lot of opportunity for the public's involvement, so I think it's a great time to kind of broadcast it while we have a big audience, if you don't mind.
Sure, no problem. So the city staff has been working to update the zoning code, which is, if you look at the zoning code, it's about 4 inches thick, or you look at the city code, it's about 4 inches thick. The zoning code's about a third of that. So it's a large document. It affects every property owner in the city. And so we've went through the process of updating that, and it hasn't been updated since the 70s. And so we're looking for direction to proceed with doing the rezoning consistent with the districts that were created within the last year. And what we would be doing is holding meetings in the neighborhoods in the city, probably in ward sections in the fall, and move towards a full adoption of the rezoning of the city in the winter months and possibly after the first of the year. So we just want to be able to provide that input to the community, provide and obtain feedback from the community. And we'll be posting, we're hoping to have all of the meetings kind of set out in the newsletter that goes to every residence in the city around Swamp Fox time. So there'll be a project, or there'll be a program, there'll be communication to the public, and we're really hoping to get the word out so that we can really get good feedback. When you're rezoning every parcel in the city, that has the ability to create a lot of public comment. So really what we're trying to do is be able to answer those questions before you get to a public hearing such as that was tonight, and just have a lot of the concerns understood before we get to that point. So
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited for that. Look for that in the fall, I guess, bulletin that comes out, and please participate in your awards, or even more, because we want your input. And as Tom mentioned, this hasn't been looked at in like 40 years, or revised in 40 years, and we've grown quite a bit, so we just need to bring it up to speed.
Very good, thank you. Any other discussion on that particular item? Seeing none, all those in favor of directing staff to proceed with the citywide rezoning based on the September 2018 adopted zoning district say aye.
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 All opposed say no. Motion passes. Thank you. As we go through the other department discussions, it doesn't look like there's anything on the agenda. That does bring us to the public forum. This is a time set aside for comments from the public on topics other than listed on the agenda. Please understand that the City Council will not take any action on any comments at this meeting due to the requirements of the Open Meetings Law, but may do so at a future meeting. So those of you who would like to come before the council, please be sure you fill out a card. The rules apply to this section as any public hearing section. So we will entertain the first one that would like to address the City Council.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Give me one for the mayor. I'll put it on his desk. Okay, here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to make this quick. It's been a long evening for all of us. My name is Kim McDaniel. I live at 3098 3rd Street in Marion. I've lived here 18 years. The purpose for my address of the City Council tonight is to educate you on TNR and to open a discussion perhaps for a community cat program for the City of Marion. I'm sure most of you, or not all of you, think there's no problem. There's a problem. In 2007, for example, I TNR'd personally 80 cats out of Lindale Manor out off behind the old Kmart. And I thought, surely this is an anomaly. This couldn't possibly happen anywhere else. Last year, 2 individuals who I don't believe are here TNR'd 174 cats out of Marion Village and 12 cats out of Squaw Creek on their own dime. I'm guesstimating that cost would be over $6,000 personally expensed by these individuals. I am now in Squaw Creek. I was actually looking for several lost pets, and I see kitties. This last month, I've personally TNR'd 25 of those cats. The management of Squaw Creek is openly hostile, and really unfortunately for their solution is, although they've denied it, is to allow the cats to be shot and dumped into a locked dumpster. Now, they did fire the man who was responsible for this cruelty, but that gives very little comfort to those people who have lost a pet in Squaw Creek and who also have TNR'd and have invested in the care of these community cats. There must be, and there is, a more humane approach, and that's why I'm here tonight to quickly update you on what that might be. A TNR approach gives the residents, no matter where, an opportunity to take responsibility for the care and well-being of these animals rather than considering them a nuisance to be shot. Quite frankly, we in the rescue community, and there are perhaps a few with me here tonight, should not be, we simply can't TNR them all. I don't have the resources to TNR 174 cats. It shouldn't be the responsibility of those of us who take responsibility to manage for those who take no responsibility. It certainly took a village to create this problem, and I think it might take a village to solve it. So why is this important? Well, this problem is especially prevalent around apartment buildings and near trailer parks. And Marion, as you are aware, has a number of these type of housings, but it really can happen anywhere. Unaltered animals that are abandoned by irresponsible pet owners or become lost will naturally procreate if they're not fixed. Until municipalities and or landlords, or for that matter, require landlords, or all residents for that matter, to have their pets licensed and microchipped, the problem will continue. In spite of we can't do anything about it, the solution is entirely within your hands. Landlords certainly ask for deposits and credit references. Proof for an animal being fixed and microchipped should be standard practice as well. There's a small organization here in Cedar Rapids called ARF Iowa, and they offer low-cost spay-neuter subsidies for low to mid-income folks here in eastern Iowa. Sandy Miller, who runs this organization, has offered $20 cat spays and $30 cat neuters to residents of Squaw Creek who qualify. And with the help of a couple of young gentlemen who were enthusiastic, a little brochure was put on everybody's door in Squaw Creek by these little guys. So far, the vouchers that have been granted will take care of 25 community cats, 10 cats that are owned, and 5 dogs that are owned. I know Sandy Miller is personally responsible for assisting thousands of people to pay for their cats to be fixed in Lynn, Jones, Blackhawk, Iowa, Benton counties, as well as some other outlying areas. In fact, in Marion, for 2018 alone, 430 cats were sterilized, with 219 of those being community cats. Nobody owned them. They were just strays, with the other 211 being, pet owned, like we all have. ARF Iowa's effort, however, is just one piece of this puzzle, and TNR for community cats is the other. Iowa Humane Alliance, and you have some information from them in your packet, which opened in January of 2013, recently crossed the 50,700 spay-neuter mark. 33,000 of those were cats. 66%, or 66%. We in the rescue community naively thought, boy, we're going to make a dent in this. with 50,000 animals, and I think that our optimism remains just that, optimism. So municipalities who offer official community cat program TNR ordinances currently in place include Des Moines, Waterloo, Cedar Falls, Tiffin, which is a major, kudos, those folks had a real problem down there for many years. In fact, had a bounty on cats to be shot. Clinton, Washington, Wellman, Winterset, and Boone. Hiawatha is in a 3-year trial period for funding TNR and colony care. North Liberty is currently waiting on their new city attorney to draft a TNR ordinance, and Iowa City is in conversation about updating their ordinances to include TNR. Cedar Rapids is also working to finalize their TNR ordinance. The point is there's no need to start from scratch. There are a number of municipalities in Iowa that are already addressing this issue. So in your packet of information, you have a letter from Preston Moore, the Iowa Director for the Humane Society of the United States, supporting TNR for Marion. Along with that, you have a complete 38-page guide for managing community cats for municipal leaders. Should be of interest. I have a letter on the top for Iowa Humane Alliance Program Director in support of TNR. The lady would have been here, but she's due to have a baby any day, and I felt it was better to just have the letter. In addition to that, there's a number of documents from Iowa Humane Alliance kind of tucked in there. You also have a letter from Diane Weber, the Director for CRAC, Cedar Rapids Animal Care and Control, who supports TNR for Marion. You also have a letter from Amber Talbot, Director of Paws and More at Washington County, supporting TNR and the success that they've had. That's a county-wide effort. But in addition to that, you have a letter from the City of Washington addressing TNR and the success in the City of Washington, and thanking Amber for her support. So, and then finally, you've got the little flyer that I put together from ARF to try to get some folks to actually take some responsibility and get their pets taken care of. I've also included my business card on the very top so that you know I'm not some crazy person coming from outside. And I would be more than willing to make myself available to answer any questions. And if I don't know the answer, which I've only been doing this for 15 years, so I'm sure I don't know everything, I bet I can find the person to answer your question if you have one. So this is a humane investment in our community. I don't know about the fee-specific arrangements for shelter services that you have with the city for feral or community cats with the city of Cedar Rapids. As Diane and I didn't get into that, but I would assume that cost could be greatly reduced through the instigation or the acceptance of a community TNR program. I urge you to consider this establishment of a positive, humane, funded TNR program for the city of Marion and take a leading role for the community. And everybody have a great evening. It's been a long night, so thank you.
Thank you, Kim, and thanks for coming to present before us this evening and bringing us that information. Are there any questions for Kim? No? Thank you very much.
With my cell phone on the back.
We appreciate your attendance this evening. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. I want to thank you for the opportunity to get up here and speak on this long evening.
Could we get
My name is Charisma Tandy, and I live at 215 D Street in Walford, Iowa. And the reason I'm here in Marion is because I am co-director of Community Cat League. It is a new organization that's been formed for the purpose of championing the care and protection of free-roaming cats in the corridor. We do this by advocating and demonstrating the use of trap, neuter, return. Also, you could refer to that as trap, neuter, vaccinate, return. A lot of people wonder about the safety of free-roaming cats, and we want to make sure that everyone knows that when they go in for those surgeries, they're also being vaccinated, helping to keep the population healthy as well as the public. We advocate and demonstrate to communities, to businesses, to organizations, and we also offer education and support to community cat caregivers. all very important terms that would be used in city ordinances if you were so inclined to make adjustments to your current animal ordinances. I'm here tonight specifically to show support to your community cat caregiver, Kim McDaniel, who's done an awesome job of presenting to you tonight. Just blown away by her energy and her commitment to this issue, the amount of years that she has put in taking care of animals in the city of Marion. She is an example for all of us to follow. I am asking the council tonight to simply consider inviting Kim and other TNR advocates and groups back to the table here in Marion to talk about trap neuter return and how the city of Marion can move forward towards the only effective and humane method of caring for and reducing the number of cats living in the open throughout your city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions for her before she leaves the podium?
That name was Charisma.
That's what I thought.
In case you were unsure of that.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Good evening,
Back
sir.
again.
Good evening.
My name is Robert Buckley, 2730 Heatherview Circle, Marion. I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of myself and my family and several friends to tell you how disappointed we are that the Marion Public Library is taking such an active role in promoting pride in action. I'm sure many of you are aware that, or I don't know, maybe a lot of you aren't aware that this Saturday, as this poster indicates, the LGBTQ community will be at the library, openly promoting and answering questions, promoting their lifestyles. And I want you to understand before I go any farther, and my comments are going to be less than 3 minutes, is I have nothing against lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgenders, queer. God tells us that we have to admire all of our people and love our neighbors as ourselves, and I tried to do that. But that does not mean that I need to love and admire and accept their lifestyles. Nor does that mean I need to step by and let them force it or push it on us, which is exactly what is happening in my mind Saturday. In a public, tax-supported library, and at a time when the building will be filled with children, young, innocent, impressionable children, many who come every week to enjoy story time. The difference, of course, this week, this Saturday, story time will feature a drag queen. I feel that welcoming this group to the library is a mistake. I think it's setting a dangerous precedent for the city, for the library. This month we invite the LGBTQ community. What happens if one of the white supremacy groups comes to town looking for a public meeting location? Far-fetched? Not really. Just last week, the newspaper carried a story of them, a neo-Nazi group in Iowa City, going around passing out newspapers, promotional flyers. What if NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association, comes calling? I respectfully recommend to the City Council, although I realize it is impossible and you cannot vote on it tonight, that you advise the library to cancel this event. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for coming. Any questions for Robert? No. Thank you, Robert. We appreciate you coming. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Tibbetts. My address is 1033 7th Street. And I just want to, again, point out, I came here to hear a proclamation. I came here to have the city make a statement. I'm representing this Marion Civil Rights Commission. And with this statement of saying that the very last line, eliminate prejudice everywhere it exists and to celebrate the great diversity of our community. Events such as Pride in Action that are happening this weekend are a time to do just that. And I have been a resident of Marion since 1997 and grew up in Cedar Rapids and chose to move to Marion as an adult and to raise my child in Marion. It has been shocking, the information or the comments that are being made on social media platforms that are so prejudiced and so not what Marion strives to be. And I just want to reiterate that I appreciate the proclamation, and I think that words have meaning, and I want this proclamation to have meaning. So while there are some that may not, they have their own opinions, it is not, to me, it's not the Marion way. So thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions for Jennifer? No? Thank you, Jennifer. We appreciate you coming. Good evening.
Hi, my name is John Brauman. I actually live in Cedar Rapids at 257 13th Street Northwest. I lived in Marion for, about 18 years. I actually lived in Marion Village Trailer Court. I was one of the two people that spayed and neutered 185 cats last year. I did the bulk of the fundraising myself. I did the bulk of the trapping, and my partner did a lot of the logistics. But I don't want to take up a lot of your time. It has been a very long night. But I did want to ask that you guys take the opportunity to have a conversation with some of the people that she's provided information from. Prior to me getting into this, I didn't think it was an issue either, right? You drive down the street, you see a cat, they're all over, just like raccoons and possums. There's a huge problem. I work with that trailer court, the management and the owners, on an unofficial level. They have my number, they call me, I take care of problems. But every trailer court, every apartment building, as Kim mentioned, there's an issue that needs to be addressed. It's a humane issue. They're not going away. And the only humane way to address it is through TNR. So please take the opportunity to have a conversation with the folks that she's brought to your attention.
Thank you, John. We appreciate you coming this evening, and thank you for what you do. Is there any questions for John before he leaves the podium? No. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to address the council at this time? Seeing none, we'll close the public forum. We'll bring the discussion back up here to the council. We've had a very busy evening this evening. We'll start with my right, Mr. Jensen.
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. First of all, I attended the Encore Cafe lunch last week, and they gave the city, so I will present it to the city. It says, presented to the City of Marion in recognition and appreciation for your unwavering support and active involvement with Encore Cafe, Heritage Area Agency on Aging. So this was their first anniversary. So what's really neat about the Encore Cafe is, of course, in the City of Marion, we talked about reaching higher. That's certainly an example of what we've done. So they have lunch at the library 2 days a week and out at Lau Park 2 days a week. That program is now being copied in Cedar Rapids and in Central City and other places. So it has been very successful. The other thing I'll do, which I usually don't do a plug for a business, but my wife and I went to have supper at Urban Pie on Monday. We ordered a pizza and drinks, and the waitress come up, and after we ordered that, she says, "Are you from Marion?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, then your first drink is free because you ordered a pizza here." I go, "Really? Why is that?" She said, "Well, it's part of this is on a Monday night, so put that on your calendar. This is on Monday nights, not every night. she said, as part of our Marion celebration and doing that for the summer. So I thought that was really cool that they're doing something on their own to give an incentive to Marion citizens. So anyway, just a little plug, but I thought it was kind of a neat thing to see a business doing something like that.
Thank you. We appreciate those comments. No comments? I'm looking at you. No, I'm looking at you.
Oh, well, I was.
Oh, you're looking at me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, Paul doesn't have any comments. It doesn't matter if it's
No,
9
no,
o'clock,
look
right?
at you, babe.
I don't have any comments.
No
It's
comments.
8:45, and we've done good work tonight.
Well,
so.
thank you. It's nice to have you back.
Thanks.
Mr. Draper.
I'd first like to apologize for my heart monitor squeaking twice tonight. I went to the doctor today, and I think he loosened it up a little bit, so it's kind of bad. You always I like to talk about history. Sometimes I don't go back so far. Tonight I'm going back to 1957. 1957, Dwight Eisenhower was president, and he was the first president who was truthfully a lame duck. It was decided by Congress that he could only run 2 terms. Prior to that, if you'd remember, Roosevelt was 4 terms, and there were some other multi-term presidents. But Ike was limited to his 2 terms. Other things of interest to me, and in 1957, I had somewhat of a miracle. I got thrown out of the Navy because of my heart after serving there. But I also went to college and was able to do both that year. So it worked out pretty well for me, really. But Elvis bought an old mansion in Memphis that he called Graceland. And the next day he got drafted. I think that's kind of interesting. 1957, minimum wage was $1 an hour. Eggs were $1, or milk was $1 a gallon. Eggs were 60 cents. You could build a new home for $1,200. Not much money in real estate in that one. The thing I remember most about 1957 is, and what things cost $65 to rent an apartment. If you could make $90 a year, you're making a lot of money. I spent $10 that year at the Lynn County Courthouse in Marion, in Belleville, Illinois, for a marriage license. And effective this Saturday, that young lady and I will be married 62 years, which is something I'm very proud of. So, thank you.
Ms. Gedalia.
Thank you. I just want to put in a plug for the Marion Fire Department Citizens Academy. 2019 is coming up. They changed the time frame. It looks like it's August to October, but I saw the bulletin come out. I don't want to be greedy and do it again, although I might in the future do it again. And I would just tell people that not only do you get a lot of great insight into our Marion Fire Department, you learn life-saving skills, things to protect your home. It's very fulfilling. You learn a lot about yourself. I mean, if you like, I'd never used a chainsaw or an axe. I didn't make the rappelling. I wasn't very successful with that. I have a height issue, but you definitely challenge yourself, and it's a lot of fun. It's once a week for 8 weeks. How many weeks?
For 8 weeks, 3 hours.
8 weeks, 3 hours. And it's just a lot of fun to meet, their firefighters as well. So I would encourage people who have time to be able to do this. There are people of all age ranges. So just want to give a plug. It was a lot of fun, and I'm glad that it's continuing. Thank you.
I'm in.
Should. It's good stuff.
Renee, maybe the Marion PD will do a Citizens
I'd
Academy.
sign up
and you
for
can
that.
Walk around and give tickets for jaywalking or something. They wouldn't let you carry a gun,
I'll give
I'm
the
sure.
speeding tickets. I'll give the speed. I have a I
Whoa.
have my permit, so.
Okay.
My carry permit.
No, real quick, I just wanted to congratulate Paul and his bride on 62 years. It's a big accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Somebody down here said she deserves a medal. I don't know.
Oh. Well, that brings it back up to me here, and I want to just thank everybody for their patience this evening. It's been a very long evening. What stands between me and the doorway will be, or you and the doorway will be myself. I as well, too. We have a lot of things going on this weekend. We've got the Prince Tribute out at Lau Park, I believe, going on this weekend. There's been a lot of talk about that going around town, so that's very exciting. I want to also give out another shout-out to the Fly-In Breakfast. That'll be occurring from 6 to 12 on this Sunday. There's a pancake breakfast out there. There'll be a lot of vendors. There's opportunities to see the aircraft and other things. And most importantly, come out and see our fire department. They'll be out there on display as well. They'll be doing, correct me if I'm wrong, fireworks presentation of safety.
That's correct. We'll be doing a fireworks safety presentation.
Wonderful. That's a great change of the venue this year. They normally host the sprinkler trailer and do their presentation on that. And being fit, I'm starting to see a lot of fireworks tents start to pop up around in the adjacent communities, so it's that time of year again. I'd like to thank everybody. They're mostly gone now, but thank for the public that came out this evening. These are very trying discussions that we're having and things that we want to overcome and move forward. So with that, I believe the mayor will be back next week.
There's the patriotic picnic also Saturday in the park. I don't know the times.
Thank you very much. That's right. Patriotic.
I don't know.
11 to 3.
Thank you.
11 to 3. Thank you. Appreciate that.
And I'll be at the library Saturday morning. I don't know if anyone else is joining me.
Yep. So again, we've got a lot of activities going on this weekend. So with that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.